It's going. Start webinar.
All right.
Good morning or
Vietnam.
happy time zone, wherever you're joining us.
Woo-hoo.
Day 2, active defense and cyber deception with the illustrious John Strand.
Some approximation thereof. So, all right. Let me try to move my stuff around here. I'm trying to stand today. Yeah.
You're going to stand all day?
Well,
Do you
yeah,
have like an anti-fatigue mat?
I don't, but
You
I'm
should
trying to
get one.
stand in the place where I work. This is not going to work. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my class.
Yeah, it
I
reminds
might
me of
just
that.
have to, I think if I have to sit, we'll just drop the whole table and just do it that way.
Yeah,
Uh, think about
exactly.
direction, wonder why you haven't. All right. I believe we have to go straight to labs at this point.
Yes,
I
you
think that
do.
that's
So we're
what.
going to go backstage. We just came out to say hi to everybody, let them know that we are still here and we're supporting everybody behind the scenes and, in spirit. So
All
we
right.
will let you get started with your lab, sir.
All right, let's do it. All right. So
Come
where
on.
we left off was the anti-siphon lab for active countermeasures. Too many A things in our company. So what do we got? 67 there. We got 133 there. All right, we got people in Discord. All right, we're ready to rock and roll. Oh my God, I've got to pause myself over here in the YouTubes because I am a ways off. There we go. I'm a ways off, and it's really weird to see myself that far delayed. It just ruins me. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the lab with active countermeasures. And one of the things I feel kind of bad about, a little bit bad about, and I should have told you, is some of you were trying to do the active countermeasures lab inside of the cloud VM. And whoo boy, does that suck. Turns out you really don't need to do it inside of the VM because it's a link that you can open up from anywhere. Now, if we're going to kind of do a recap from yesterday, we were talking about the things that we can do as part of an information security program that are active, that is engaged, like doing adversarial emulation. That is an active, engaged activity where we are doing something in our environment where we're emulating what adversaries are going to do and we're incorporating it back into our security support structure. Many times this is referred to as purple teaming, right? We call it purple teaming in a lot of different places in that as well. Also, we looked at how we can do like kind of some basic threat hunting on endpoints and things of that nature. And we moved over to network level threat hunting. And this is straight out of the MITRE Engage framework. MITRE Engage framework has network monitoring that isn't just run an IDS system and a firewall and hope for the best, right? It's passive defense to do like your standard IPS and your standard firewall. With an active defense approach, you're going to actively go hunting in your environment. And we started by looking at a lab where we were working through an advanced backdoor, right? That advanced backdoor, we had base 64 encoded data that was really difficult to identify with the standard signature because it's encoded, not necessarily encrypted. And it gives you an idea just how hard it is to do signature-based detection with an advanced adversary. How do we actually do network threat hunting like that at scale? And for that, we have a tool called AC Hunter. All right. So we're going to go over here to AI hosted. You can open this up in any browser. It's got an SSL certificate error. It's fine. Not a problem at all. And we're going to put in the credentials right here. There we go. Put that in the address. And then we're going to put in the password of got beacons. And then we're going to log in. Now, this is kind of cool. Actually, this is kind of funny. We're working with vendors like CrowdStrike and other vendors who I will not name that really want to get commercial products into anti-siphon training, and that's cool. I think that that's fine as long as they're willing to support the pay what you can model. I have no problem putting their class like labs up, and that's great. The thing that I find absolutely just like chuckle worthy is as soon as I tell them, like, we could have 1,000 students or hundreds of students in at the exact same time, you just see the blood drain from their face and they're like, wait, what? Like, how does that work? Like, that's going to crash things. And we call this the BHIS hug of death. Whenever we go to a vendor with so many people that it literally crashes out their entire infrastructure. And I'm pushing my computer back up against the wall. Oh my God, it's crazy. It's like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise here. There we go. So that's better. But yet I have a development team of about 3 or 4 people, and yeah, we totally can run the entirety of a class of about 2,000-3,000 people on one system read only. And I like to point that out to the executives that have budgets that are millions of dollars for marketing. And I'm like, we can do it. It's like Tony Stark. It's like, he built this in a cave in Afghanistan. Like, yeah, it's kind of like that with our people on there. All right, so the link to get to AC Hunter, we got some questions, is at the bottom of this document right there. There you go. It's right here. Just scroll down to the bottom to where you see the please go to https://training.aihosted.com. All right, so now that we're in, what the hell is this? Well, if you remember when we were doing the lab with the advanced C2, we noticed that there was a certain amount of frequency consistency in that command and control for that tool called VS Agent. It would beacon at a somewhat regular interval at 30 seconds. Now, AC Hunter and what Rita does, which is really what's under the hood for this tool, it allows us to automatically identify and find beaconing command and control servers in environments. Now, not everything that beacons is malware. You're going to have a lot of things that beacon that are like updates. And AC Hunter has the ability to list those and not generate a score based on those systems and what they're actually beaconing as well. But let's walk through what the interface does and how this fits into an active approach for defense. Because once again, IDS and firewalls, it's passive. It's just going to watch the traffic. It's like counting blue cars, right? So it's going to go through and it's going to look for a specific signature. And if something matches that signature, it generates an alert. But how do we get into our environment and dig in such a way that we can find more advanced adversaries? And we have some great examples in here of that. So when you first come in, at the bottom of the screen, we have the beacon screen. AC Hunter ingests Zeek logs. It ingests these Zeek logs and it parses the connection log from Zeek, and it allows us to identify beaconing behavior in these data sets. So I'll talk more about what a beacon is here in just a little bit. We can also do beacons by a fully qualified domain name, getting back to that CDN problem, where an attacker can bounce their command and control traffic off of a CDN, so the IP addresses are rotating around. So we can do that based on the fully qualified domain name as well, which we're going to come back to that. Beacons, proxy, don't have anything there, don't have any strobes in this. We do have long connections. So let's talk about long connections. With long connections, I want you to imagine an attacker that's really, really super crazy creative, right? And that attacker knows that we're doing some type of frequency analysis to identify beaconing on a network, right? They're like, aha, so looking for consistent beacons. All right, I'm going to randomize my beacons. Now, I want you to imagine a string of spaghetti, mom's spaghetti, and it's on a sweater already. We have this string of spaghetti, all right? Imagine that string of spaghetti represents a string of spaghetti roughly the size of New York. No, wait, that's the wrong analogy. That's Twinkies. We have this string of spaghetti. And if you take that dry spaghetti and you break it, it breaks and shatters in a wide variety of different lengths. Some of them will be medium, some will be very, very long, some of them will be itsy bitsy, teensy tiny. And I want you to think of a C2 that does that. It breaks a 24-hour connection. Hello, Christopher. Welcome to class. It takes a 24-hour connection and it breaks it up into little itty bitty chunks and medium-sized chunks and longer chunks to try to get around frequency detection. AC Hunter and Rita can totally detect that because it reassembles all the time that the systems have been communicating, and it can see that these systems have been communicating for 73 or 75 hours. So as much as attackers are trying to randomize, we can reassemble and we can still detect those types of frequencies. It also integrates with threat intelligence feeds. A lot of them are open source threat intelligence feeds because it's all open source threat intelligence feeds under the hood, right? For commercial threat intel feeds. And it can look at known bad IP addresses and domains and correlate that beaconing behavior with that. It can do DNS. I'm going to go through and we're going to look at DNS in a lot more detail here in a couple of seconds. It can do client signatures using something called JA3 from Salesforce. We have a question from the apostles. Can we hook it up with OpenCTI only if it's consensual? But yes, it absolutely can connect with any threat intelligence feed that can drop it down into a database or a flat file format. And then it can import that and do cross correlation with those IP addresses and URLs. If it can output to a flat file, it can ingest it and it can run it and do it that way. Also, it has a cyber deception module. Chef's kiss. Let me explain how this works. I can create a token and it'll create a cyber deception file or user account in an environment. And then if anybody accesses that cyber deception asset, it'll automatically cross correlate the system that accessed it to see if there's any beaconing going to the internet on that system as well. Another great question from YouTube. Is it possible to try it out by capturing PCAP from a border firewall and importing it into AC Hunter? Absolutely, you can. And you're not going to be able to swamp AC Hunter. If you keep throwing enough CPU and memory at it, it's going to handle it. But hell, that's true of anything, right? However, this particular tool is running at one of our largest customers is Intel, and they're running 100 gigabits per second through this. So it's doing that type of beaconing analysis at 100 gigabits per second. So yeah, it can take it. The reason why it's really fast is it's written in Golang, which allows multi-threading and allows for clustering on that as well. So we're going to get to the data sets here in just two shakes of a lamb's tail, but ClesSec, if you look at the bottom of the intro lab right here, it tells you which data set you should be looking at. It says WinLab agent data set, what's the connection interval between this IP address, GCAT data set, and then the DNSCAT 2 strobe agent data set. But we're going to get to those in just a minute on that as well. All right, so it just really, really cool. I should rewrite it in Rust. No, like, why would you do that to me? Like, just drop that in here. Like, you should rewrite it in Rust. It's like, hipster languages, right? Of course, it's a hipster language that Linus Torvalds is now writing in the Linux kernel as well. Ooh, no more languages, no more languages. Please don't turn me flipping off one of my students into a meme. I don't need that shit. No one does, right? All right. So, and we're going to get to deep dive here in just a couple of seconds. All right, so I'm going to show you how to load a data set. So in the data sets, what is the first question? Let's go through the first question. It says, in the WinLab agent data set, what's the connection interval for 10.10.98.30? 10.10.98.30. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at that right here. I'm going to open up that data set here and WinLab agent, confirm, and I'm going to open up the beacons and 10.10.98.30. The mode for this interval is right here. We have 3,729 connections at 15-second intervals. Well, that's pretty cool, right? Can it be used in an offline manner? Gather PCAPs from other logs? Yes, it can. You have to process it through Zeek, and then it picks up those Zeek logs and then it processes them. It works perfectly fine offline as well. So let's talk about this frequency thing. All right, let's just spend a couple of seconds and let's kind of kick around the idea of frequency and what are the things that we can do when we're dealing with frequency analysis and how hard is it to do frequency analysis by hand. So let's talk about what a frequency is. So I want you all to think for a second, how many of you have children? Does anybody here have kids or have been around kids or have other family members who have children? Have any of you seen children anywhere in any fashion whatsoever? All right, 4 of you. That's cool. Kids are like little humans, but way annoying, more annoying, which is kind of shocking. Cats. You have cats. That's good too. Little fur babies. All right. So have you ever seen a conversation between a child and a parent where the child comes up and says, mom, 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 or dad, 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 mushroom, mushroom. I don't know if anybody has ever seen that conversation. That happens a lot. Turns out that's very similar to a beacon. It's very consistent in its interval, and it's also very consistent in its data size. DAD, 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 or MOM, 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 MOM. You see that frequency, right? It's like a beacon. It's got a heartbeat. It's got a beat. You can dance to it, right? So what AC Hunter is trying to do is it's trying to identify connection pairings that are leaving an environment that have that type of heartbeat, you know. Yeah, that frequency, that heartbeat that we can identify, right? But periodically, you have some things that are weird, right? Do any of you, none of you in this, the hundreds of you that are present and accounted for, how many of you have people you've ran into, not you, that say, you know, my child is a genius. My child is truly gifted. I'm just very, 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 my child is like, they're so smart. And then my mom says I am, my mom says that's true, right? All parents think that and say that, and most parents are wrong, right? So if you're talking to somebody and they're like, well, you know, they got a 4.0 and they're very good at gymnastics and they're on swim team and they climbed Everest and they do all this stuff, it's not, seriously, that kid is bright. There's not digging on that kid at all. But you can always tell the parents, the parents that are parents of like real genius children, right? The real genius children parents, they're like, so yesterday, so we had Logan and Logan, we cleared out this room for Logan because whenever he's playing with toys or he's playing in a room, and if we leave him unattended, he'll start taking things apart. And what we did is we created this room. He's a toddler and he's just out of diapers, and we created this room and it's nothing but like a hardwood floor. And we'll give him tools, toys like blocks, and then he'll play with those blocks. And then when we're done, we'll give him Legos, but you don't ever give him Legos and blocks because he'll create nuclear fusion or something like that. And seriously, the other day we just had him playing in the room by himself. We were just, my wife and I were just sitting in the other room. We were just trying to relax. We were just trying to get, you know, and then all of a sudden we hear popping, like this weird popping noise. And it's like pop, 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 pop. And we go into the other room and there's Logan. Logan's literally pulling the trim off of the wall. Why? Because he wanted to see what's behind the trim in the wall. Those are the kids that are actual geniuses. And those are usually the kids that come up to you and they're like, mom, 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 mom. Those are the kids that know how to get under your skin. And those are the kids that randomize their frequency when they're trying to communicate. And AC Hunter can detect type of communication as well. Because if you look at any type of quote unquote randomized dispersion of communication, you're going to have drop-offs. You're going to have a very definitive beginning. You're going to have a very definitive end. And you can also like look at that frequency dispersion. And AC Hunter can detect genius children. Should we use AC Hunter on our kids? Hell yeah, I do. In fact, there's a community edition of AC Hunter that you all can set up at home. I have step-by-step instructions on how to set up, I got them here somewhere, how to set up AC Hunter at home doing ARP cache poisoning. And you too can start using AC Hunter on home as well. But this is what a frequency looks like. So you can see that we have a little bit of dispersion where we have this like left trail of communication. So it's not central, but we still have a very strong mode at 15 seconds. It means the vast majority of our connections are at 15 seconds, which is pretty cool. So that would answer that first question. The next question is the GCAT dataset. What is the historic fully qualified domain name for the, what was it? 10, 55, 100, 111. Let me log back in. There we go. So if I open up the GCAT data set and we go to that, now we're going to talk a little bit about what GCAT is. All right. So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far, far away, I got an idea that firewalls and IDS and IPS systems and data loss prevention products would ignore any and all traffic that's going to Google, specifically Google Mail. All right. And the intern that I was working with at the time literally created a tool called GCAT that put all of the command and control through well-formed email request messages going up. There you go. ARP cache poisoning for fun, profit, and the betterment of pets and children. So there's the webcast associated with. Thank you so much, HK. And so we created this tool, and literally none of the organizations we were pen testing were able to detect the command and control that went through Google Mail. None of them. They couldn't detect it. And there was a couple of reasons for this, and this actually makes sense if you kind of think about it a little bit. One of the reasons why it makes sense is, imagine if they were intercepting absolutely all traffic that was coming and going to Google Mail, then that means there could be potential HIPAA violations in that data. That would suck. The other thing that you run into if all of a sudden you're intercepting absolutely everything that's coming and going to, oops, did we lose sound? There we go, should be back. So if you're intercepting any and all the traffic that you send and receive to Google, is it's going to be a lot of traffic. So I want to show you an XKCD comic because I think it articulates this. We go XKCD tar. There we go. And I love this particular XKCD comic. It says, Rob, you use Unix, come quick. And then it says, to disarm the bomb, simply enter a valid tar command on your first try. No Googling, you have 10 seconds. Rob, I'm so sorry. Can you imagine if every single time that you went to Google and did any searching on how to use a command, it would generate an IDS alert that somebody is executing commands via Google? That wouldn't go over very well. So that's another reason why they don't do it. And the other one is volume. The spice must flow. Like, you have to get traffic going to the internet. And if you're running an IDS, IPS firewall and it's intercepting all of this traffic from the Googles, then it's going to take a lot more processing, and it's going to end up in a situation where you're going to slow things down. By ignoring everything from Google, you absolutely get a scenario where you can go faster. So that's why we created GCAT. Now let's talk a little bit about nation states. Shortly after we released GCAT as a proof of concept tool, Russia used it as a backdoor against the Ukrainian power grid before the war. So we literally saw a scenario where where Russia was stealing the stuff that we created and was literally using it in offensive operations against Ukraine, right? So that's kind of scary. So part of the reason why AC Hunter exists is because of things like that. We desperately want to be in a scenario where people can detect what it is that we do. And right now, none of the vendors can actually do that. So we created AC Hunter. So the fully qualified domain name for this is, let me see if I can zoom in, gmail.smtp.msl. So it's smtp.gmail.com. And this also brings back the concept of why network threat hunting. This is why network threat hunting, because there's so many different places where you can hide on a network where you will not be detected on a network, that you need to have some kind of active network threat hunting team to be able to find these types of backdoors and these types of threat actors in an environment as well. All right, what's the next question? We get down to it. DNS Cat 2 JA3 strobe agent. Let's go back to that. And I love this one. What is the domain name for that one? Let me show you that. And let's talk about DNS backdoors. The primary DNS backdoor that's out there is a tool called DNS Cat 2 by Ron Bowes. And what it does is it encodes all of the command and control traffic in well-formed DNS queries. And one of the tricks of making this work is the queries have to be for randomized non-existent hosts on the attacker's domain. The reason why is if it's a randomized host, then the query is going to go all the way through every single time. If you're using the same host again and again and again, it'll get cached at your local DNS resolver, which is usually your domain controller. So you can see in this one right here, you can see that we have this one domain, r-1x.com, has like 62,468 fully qualified domain names. That's a little high, like just a scooch. Google doesn't even have that many fully qualified domain names. They just don't. Also, the number of lookups are 109,227. That's a lot. However, you may expect that if all of your DNS queries are coming from the exact same system, i.e. your domain controller, because it's doing DNS resolution for every system in your environment. Could be. So that's why we say how many systems are making the queries. They have 192.168.88.2. How many systems are connecting? If we look at that, it's only the same system. So this is how you detect DNS command and control. Did finding Russia using your product make you feel a little bit like Tony Stark, the terrorist that Stark Industry creates? A little bit. One of the things, and we talked about this on Black Hills Information Security, talking about news that was a little bit rough, was when we're looking at what's going on in the industry, right? Like the Okta CTO, I think he was the CTO, was talking about how they've never before seen attacks or seeing attackers do this attacks on identities and all these things. Everything he's talking about that's a new attack is stuff that pen testing teams and Black Hills Information Security were using 5-6 years ago. And there's a real tension that exists in the community as a whole, where we talk about techniques and then we don't see the defensive community and the product community catch up, sometimes for like 5 years after. And that's one of those situations. So when you see Russia come out with something like that, where they're basically using an open source tool, it's a little bit scary that they're using one of your tools, but it's also incredibly vital that we have good communication and we can get these things fixed and addressed as quickly as possible. Which brings me kind of my last point on it. We couldn't get vendors to fix this as an issue. It wasn't until our customers and then eventually this Ukrainian power grid attack landed that the vendors actually started fixing it. That was very frustrating. And it's also very common in the industry as well. So that is AC Hunter. And that's what it does. And once again, this is active because it requires you to sit down and interact with your network traffic to understand what is actually happening in the environment as well. So yes, when you're looking at these types of things, is it easy for vendors to write signatures? Hell no, it's not. And I don't blame the vendors for saying that, right? It's a difficult problem. But let me back up for a couple of seconds. Let's just kind of reset some of this. Yeah, HK is totally not AI, which is totally what AI would say. Do your users need to be able to go to Google email and Yahoo Mail and Hotmail and personal email? Do your users need to go to the standard internet and just surf the internet all day long from their work computer? Do your end users need to have ads displayed on their computers? See, one of the things I'm trying to normalize in the industry is let's block on protected work computers everything that isn't work related. And the reason why I say that this is a good thing is because people can access the internet through their magic internet handheld device. You can get your personal email on here. You can get all your apps on here. You can get Facebook on here. You can do all of your risky damn surfing right here. Okay? How, like, this works. But people don't want to do this because people want to look like they're working at computers, right? So like they want to be able to alt tab very, very quickly and then have a spreadsheet that's up and running. And they're like, oh, well, alt tab. It's look, John's working on a spreadsheet. It's much more difficult for me if I'm sitting there like this. Like, and then somebody walks in. As soon as they see me on my phone, they automatically know that I'm on my phone, right? It's very hard to be like, oh, hey, yeah, I was working on this spreadsheet right here. I know it looks like Clash of Clans, but it's, yeah, I'm working hard, right? So a lot of organizations, the people that work there really, really, really want to make it look like they're working, but we could do better. Question from the YouTubes. For how long should a PCAP be captured from on the firewall to get the full out for AC Hunter? Thinking about trying it in production, but scared down on the time. AC Hunter, sorry, not AC Hunter, Zeek rolls its logs every single hour, and AC Hunter picks up those logs every single hour. So 1 hour minimum for it to start pulling things. Even better is 24-hour chunks. So that'd be 24 individual capture files that you would have there as well. You see, yeah, knowledge workers are judged on how productive they look. That's a sad state of affairs, but it's absolutely true, right? So, so a bunch of cool things. Another quick note that I wanted to call out is we have a community edition. If you go to AC Hunter, oh, this is awesome. Akamai is like putting ads on the name of our tools, domain tool is, and NetScout. That's fun. You know what we have that those vendors don't have? A free version. So here we've got the community edition. Let me put that in here. We've already got that. Brian got it. And then I had a webcast. If someone can repost that link, you can put that in as well. Does AC Hunter ingest flows outside of Zeek? It does. It does support NetFlow and IPFix as well. So yes, it does. But we prefer Zeek because the timestamps are far more consistent. So yes, it's free. You can set it up at home. And I've got ARP cache poisoning for fun, profit, and the betterment of pets and children. You can watch that video on how to use ARP cache poisoning to monitor the traffic at your home network. Super easy peasy, pumpkin squeezy using BetterCap. So check it out. I think it's pretty cool. I like it. Also, AC Hunter and Rita. Rita itself is open source. The main tool that's under the hood is completely open source. And it's named after my mom. My mom was kind of somebody that was like kind of an accounting person at the team and worked very closely with a number of the developers, and they named it after her. She passed away from cancer a number of years ago. And one of the things that she requested very early on, whenever they named it, is just keep this tool free, because the community has been so good to Black Hills Information Security, and it's our way of giving back. So if you want to know more about my mom, there's a Darknet Diaries. I think it's called Tales from the Big House, where I talk about my mom breaking into a bank. And you can watch that or listen to it on Darknet Diaries, which is pretty cool. So, all right, so let's keep going. All right, let's talk about venom and poison. So now we're kind of moving into more of the honeypot deception, like take of this. And we already talked a little bit about it, but I really, really, really want to make sure we drive the point home, right? Poison is something that an entity needs to interact with. It is something that can be taken. It is inert. It doesn't have the ability to move on its own. Thank you so much, I am Cyber Chia. It is not something that is, did somebody get the Darknet link? Oh, crap. It's kind of hard, HK. We have all these people. Let me copy the text and let me put it over here in the YouTubes. There you go. There you have it. So with poison, it's something that has to be interacted with, that somebody has to take, right? Venom is something that's injected, right? Like you don't have a venomous like mushroom, right? A venomous worm, right? You just don't, right? An active defense, when it's done properly, it is poison. It is something that somebody wants to interact with. We never attack directly. In this class, we are not selling venom, right? We're not, so long and thanks for the venom. We're not doing that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create poison. When the attacker interacts with it, it increases our likelihood of being able to detect them. And there's a number of ways to do this, right? Word documents, Java app, web page, honeyport, honeypot. There's so many different honey things that you can do that aren't even really like a full operating system honeypot at all, and that as well. So virus versus worm, absolutely. A virus cannot move on its own. A worm can. Poison cannot move on its own, but venom can, which is weird except for spiders, right? You hear venomous spiders sometimes, but most people call them poison spiders, but they're more venomous spiders, but that's just a different thing. But there are poisonous spiders that if you eat the spider, they're not poisonous. By the way, I don't know how you guys feel about spiders, but down in Costa Rica, we have this spider. It's actually a scorpion. Tailless. Is it a wisp or a wisp? Whip. Yeah, here it is. We have this spider down in Costa Rica. We have what we affectionately refer to as the hacker house. So Black Hills Information Security, any of the employees has access to the hacker house. down in Costa Rica. It's got like 3 or 4 units. Employees are down there all the time. Sometimes they do pen tests down there. Sometimes they just go and they surf and they hang out and things like that, which I think is really cool. We don't like to have a company that's like, well, the Costa Rica house is for executives and closers, Bill. It takes brass balls to get to the Costa Rica house. Anybody can go there, right? It's available. And they have this spider down there, the tailless wisp spider. And it's actually like, they call it like the puppy of the spider community. Like you can put your hand out and the spider will go on your hand and it likes the warmth and it just loves you and it'll follow you around. That sounds fine right up into the point that you're walking down a dark alley and one's like right here next to your head. So sidetrack there, right? No, it doesn't attack. It does attack other bugs, but like humans, it just like snuggles up and it just loves it. So, all right. So yeah, we want to create more venom and we're going to break up, or sorry, more poison. And we want to break this up and we want to break it up into different categories. Said that's awesome. Well, Brian is a little bit like, okay, so here's the deal. I need to go visit Brian. Brian is in New Zealand and we have never once visited him. And we desperately need to go visit him in New Zealand. I just kind of throwing that out there. I feel bad. All right, but we need to keep going. All right, so now we're going to talk about annoyance, right? We're going to break this poison up into a variety of different categories: annoyance, attribution, and then full on attack on there. That's actually the spider right there. I didn't know it was in Harry Potter. That's weird. All right, cool. So let's talk about different tools and what they can do. So one of the annoyance attributes that I saw a number of years ago that I thought was just absolutely phenomenal was this Mr. Clippy on PHP IDS. This is old school. You can still get the code and you can still do it, but it's just, it's kind of funny because if you try to launch a number of cross-site scripting and SQL injection attacks, it will eventually, your website will manifest Mr. Clippy. And he'll pop up and say, hello, according to PHP IDS, it looks like you're trying to pwn my site. Would you like some help with that? And when you click that link, it takes you to OWASP to teach you how to pen test web apps. Now, that's pretty much some epic trolling, right? Can you imagine trying to pen test a web app and then it literally pops up and says you're a noob and would you like help learning on how to like break into a website? Now, I want you to think this through from the perspective of psychology. What do you think, like, how do you think an attacker will take that? Like if somebody's trying to attack one of your websites and all of a sudden Mr. Clippy comes out and says, hey, I see that you're trying to hack our website. Would you like some help on how to do that? Yeah, deflation, right? Some would say challenge accepted, but that's not true. That's not true. He's going ham. I don't know what ham is, but I guess I'm hammy, ham-fisted, ham-headed, ham-hock, right? Whatever. I don't know what's going on, but we'll see that come through on the YouTubes. So whenever you're looking at this, reconsider life choices. Whenever you're looking at this, whenever I was working with like nation state level hacking, right? Like when I was working like DoD intelligence community level stuff, we had some rules. And one of those rules was don't get effing caught. Just don't get caught. And the reason why you wanted to like never, ever, ever get caught is because you would be using TTPs and some of those tools, techniques, and procedures cost a lot of money to acquire. And if you were caught, it would burn those TTPs for the future. And that makes sense. One of my favorite engagements that I did, they wanted me to do an offensive engagement and they gave me the rules and they're like, don't get effing caught. And then they said, but your IP address has to come from this space. And I noticed that my space that I was allowed to hack from, the IP address they gave me, was DoD IP address space. So I had to go back to the commander and I'm like, so you're telling me not to get caught? And he's like, yes. I'm like, and you gave me a DoD IP address to do this attack? Yes. Do you see how that might be a problem? Like if all of a sudden DoD is starting to attack you, wouldn't it be safe to assume that DoD is trying to attack you? So we had to kind of rework some things, but they're like, oh, the procedures state that everybody that's using DoD space for businesses has to use DoD IP address space. But I'm like, I'm hacking. I'm hacking on behalf of the United States government. I have to go someplace else. And eventually they got it, right? Now, when you're dealing with that nation state level thing and Mr. effing Clippy shows up At that particular point, you're going to throw a flag, you're going to get some management, or you're going to get some directors, or you're going to get a chain of command to come over, and you're going to be like, do you want me to continue? Because they just trolled me with Mr. Clippy. And the vast majority of the time, they're going to be like, kill this op, shut it down. We'll try to find another way to actually move through. Another great old school trolling that is out there that I absolutely love. This was a long time ago. And this kind of goes through like me getting started with cyber deception and some of the things that I love to do with our old web servers. Netcraft is a website that shows, and Built With is an example of this too, but Netcraft will show you what is the technology that this particular server was built on. Is it IIS? Is it Apache? Like, what is it, right? And this was a server that showed up in a Boing Boing article back in 2007. For those of you that don't know, Boing Boing is like Reddit was. It's kind of Boing Boing, and then Reddit came at, well, there might have been something in between Boing Boing and Reddit. I'm not sure. But it was like Reddit for old people back in the day. And somebody wrote up this article that was just absolutely just the funniest thing I ever read. They found this server online that was running Apache on a Commodore 64. So you should be able to see that right here. And the person that was writing the article was like, see, this just shows that Commodore 64 could have been a contender. This person was able to get Apache to compile and run on a Commodore 64. Just that operating system was let go way too soon. And they should have done more for Commodore 64. Really, what was going on, and this guy completely missed what was going on, was the attacker was changing the banner of the server infrastructure for Apache to make it look like it was running on a host of different operating systems. Like it was running on an Oric Dragon 32, a CBM PET, a ZX Spectrum 48K rubber keys, a Commodore 64, a Toshiba HX10, a Cray, right? And that was objectively funny, right? This is cool, but there's actually some utility around this as well, okay? The reason why there's utility, and there's a reason why I gave a couple of additional resources on how to do this on How to Forge and InMotion hosting and all these different sites, is because this does absolutely screw with vulnerability assessment scans. So when a vulnerability assessment scanner runs through, it's like they be lying, bro. Absolutely. The scanner scans the service, and then it scans the operating system, and then it doesn't match. And it says, for this service like Apache and this operating system, these are the vulnerabilities that I have that match up. So it'll be like, we've got Apache running on a Windows server. Okay, what vulnerabilities do we have for that? And it lists out all the vulnerabilities for those specific versions. However, when your vulnerability scanner scans your web server and it says, hey, the web server is running on a Cray, your vulnerability scanner is just like, I got nothing. I got nothing for that, right? And that tends to mess up the scan results. And this is an effective approach. Mrs. CY says, I'm just watching today. I tried to get the VMware working on my computer. It failed and died, just like my marriage. So I'm following in spirit in hopes that the lessons stay with me. Mrs. CY, on behalf of everybody at Anti-Siphon, we will be happy to get you a cloud version of the lab. If you can jump over to our Discord, if you can jump over and save our Discord, if you can come over to our Discord server and DM one of the people in Discord, because you can't DM on the YouTubes, come on over. Somebody's going to be over there. I think WizPro is hanging out. WizPro, if we could get them the link so that they can come over, we would love to have you on Discord. We will get you set up, and we will get you a cloud VM, so you don't even have to install VMware on your computer. Over here on Discord, we got all these gifts. We've got come join us, Dr. Evil. We have some, I don't know, we've got a bunch of, I think one of them is from my science project or weird science. I'm not sure. And one of the people is even saying it's totally safe over here. Come on. We welcome everybody. So get on over there and we'll get you set up and we'll get you ready to go. We're crashing it, not now. I don't want to crash Discord, not at this moment. This has been great, by the way. The people told me that YouTube was a train wreck. And by the way, Mrs. CY, if you come over to YouTube, we have the recordings of the other sessions, so you can actually view them. I know that they're going to be on YouTube too, but come on over. We got Adam's Family Gifts over here. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Welcome to the cult, Blitz. Shut up. We are not a cult. Ah, geez. All right. So come on over. We'll get you set up. We'll get you hooked up in the cloud lab so you can do this, because that's our goal. That's what we do. All right. So Honey DNS. This is one of the first things that I think I actually used in a production environment. I had a customer that had a really good pen testing firm in Guardians, was going to be doing their pen test. And the tester that was doing the test was Josh Wright at the time. And they asked me, what can I do to prepare? And I'm like, pray. And Guardians is awesome. They're a great firm. This is about 11, 12 years ago. And actually, when was the Virginia Beach earthquake? Do you guys remember when there was an earthquake in Virginia? Long, 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 long time ago. And he was doing this, and my customer was worried. So I said, here's what I want you to do. What is your IP address space? And they said, well, we have a /24. All right. So the /24, I think there's 256 like possible IP addresses, usually like 254 usable out there. And I said, how many IP addresses are you using in that situation? And they basically were like, well, we're only using like 3. I said, great. Create DNS entries for a whole bunch of other servers that go nowhere. So you have this record, you have these pointer records like 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, not used, but you're giving them named like Cracked, Fark, Bill, James, Kim, John, Mail, SMTP, Web, DNS, VPN. So when they do a reverse DNS lookup, it basically gives them a whole bunch of IP addresses that aren't there. And it wastes a tremendous amount of time, because if you're just doing a port scan, but there's DNS records, then you think your port scan is different. They're blocking ICMP. Maybe they're blocking TCP pings coming into the environment. Then you want to do a full port scan for absolutely everything, because you might be missing the ports that are there. It just greatly increases the amount of time, because the attackers are trying to find where the live hosts are, which is just crazy, right? So Josh asked me before I'm doing a presentation on cyber deception. He calls me up and he's like, dude, we were both teaching at that event. He goes, I'm going to disagree with you at your evening talk. Is that okay? It's kind of courtesy between instructors. And I said, sure, absolutely. It's not a problem. So he shows up and he said, look, I'm a pen tester. You're paying me money to assess the security of your environment. And when you're putting things like this up in your environment, it's going to take me a lot longer and it's going to cost you money. And one of the things that I like to kind of point out to people is, it's like, so you want me to reduce the security of my environment for the purposes of trying to assess the security of my environment. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You can create workarounds for your pen testers to get around them and things of that nature. That's great. But this is awesome because it shows the efficacy of doing something as simple as creating a bunch of non-existent or wildcard hosts in a domain that just reroutes attackers to honeypots again and again and again out there as well. Because you're right. Wygriff is talking about how we want to do is we want to get the attackers to waste time. That is absolutely 100% correct. We want to get them to waste as much time out there as possible. All right. So we're moving right along. Let's talk about some evil web servers. This actually came from a pen test. Sorry, I'm giving you like the historical background of how the hell this made it into the class. And almost all these things that make it into the class are things that I ran into in a customer environment, either directly as part of their security structure or something was misconfigured. In this situation, it was a horrible, scary misconfiguration out there as well. Hey, the moderators over in Discord, we have a number of people in Anti-Siphon staff. Could someone please jump over to the chat in YouTube to help get people set up? I would greatly appreciate it. We got some people that are trying to help out, but they need a link. They need to redeem the code. Let's get them set up and let's get them into the community. We're on our way, folks. We're on our way. So just sit tight. So with the evil web server, I was pen testing a bank down in Arizona. And the guy that was in charge of the IT stack for this bank was this really, really super bright genius level IT dude. And I asked him what web infrastructure he was using. And he said, oh, I wrote it all from scratch. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. You mean you're using Apache or IIS and you created your web pages from scratch? And he said, no, I created my web server from scratch. I didn't trust the vulnerabilities in Apache. I didn't trust the vulnerabilities in IIS. So other than looking at like the millions of dollars that Microsoft put into IIS or the thousands of people that are contributing to Apache, I thought to myself, I'm just going to code this up on my own because clearly I'm smarter than all of those people combined. Maybe he didn't say that verbatim, but you get the gist, right? One of the things that his web server did that was absolutely brilliant, though, is every time you went to a URL, it was randomized. Just absolutely randomized the URL. So if you tried to go to like login, it was never called login. It was called a random like long string, and it would be the login page. But if you refreshed it, it would be another random logon string. So just trying to crawl the website was an absolute nightmare because it was impossible to crawl the website because the pages' names were being dynamically and randomly assigned for every single user. That was great. Unfortunately, the rest of the website was an absolute train wreck. How do we find anything? Turns out there was all kinds of, the biggest vulnerability that he had was command injection. And if you just put in semicolons, you were able to fork off and then execute commands at the operating system. So it was really, 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 really easy. And yes, there was cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery. SQL injection, traditional SQL injection did not work because he completely coded his own database with his own SQL syntax from scratch. And I never could figure out his syntax, but it was bad. And they ended up having to scrap the whole thing. But just with all of that, just in mind, just letting you know, we ran into this web server that if you tried to crawl it, it would just crawl to infinity. It would just crawl for infinity. So with that, we have our next lab that's going to take us up to and through the break, spider trap, spider trap, spider trap. So with spider trap, what this tool does, let's go ahead and go over here to our intro labs. Oops. Oops, that was not what I wanted. That's what I get whenever I'm clicking on things. I don't know what I'm doing and I'm like losing my mind. The lab that we're going to do is spider trap here. Now, this is in the Ubuntu part of, so anytime you see anything like this, like install location and opt, it's actually in the Ubuntu system. So you're going to have to go into your instance here. And then you're going to have to open up an Ubuntu command prompt. And it takes a couple of seconds and it's going to come back up. There you go. And you're going to have to do the Ubuntu command prompt inside of the virtual machine to get that to work. And by the way, I have something really cool. I have never announced this in any of my classes. And I want to take a few minutes and I want to do a quick shout out. The first shout out that I would like to do is Barricade Cyber Solutions. If you all could do me a favor and do a quick Twitter shout out to Barricade, I would appreciate it. They are one of the people that is helping make not cyber deception. They're making the pay what you can model work for us. So if you could please go to Twitter and you could just tell them thank you. We appreciate your support. I would greatly appreciate it. It's kind of this weird model. We're trying to get away from the standard sponsorship where it's like, just give me money. We want people to get actively involved in the community. If you're somebody that's sponsoring, like a lot of these people here, they're able to just make this work and just give us money so that we can continue to do this. So that's pretty cool. But there's one person in particular that I haven't talked about in over a year. Okay. Trissa, if you're having trouble open the Ubuntu terminal in the VM, go to tech support, right to the left, and they will help you get set up and they'll probably get you set up in the cloud VM. And this particular individual, I ran into at a conference and we just kind of hit it off. We were sitting at the same table. We were talking about crazy mountain biking. And he has swam the English Channel twice, which is insane. And just kind of hit it off and was talking about what we were doing for Pay What You Can. He got very, very interested in the Pay What You Can model. And he's like, how are you making money on that? I'm like, that's the best part. I'm not. So we were talking about it. And he said, if there was one problem that you could magically have solved with the Pay What You Can model and for your students, what would it be? And I said, virtual machines. The virtual machines are difficult because there's a lot of people that just don't have computers. They can't afford a computer system that can run VMware. And he said, what if I was able to give cloud computing resources to all of your students that need it in your pay what you can classes? And I said, dude, that's expensive. Like, I don't know you, but that's seriously an expensive proposition. And he goes, shoot me an email and we'll make it happen. And this gentleman, Arnie Bellini, made it happen. Get a little bit choked up. If you could please go to LinkedIn. He's not on Twitter. At least I haven't found him on Twitter. And if you could just tell Arnie thank you on LinkedIn, I would appreciate that. Yeah, this is a big reveal. I haven't told people about this. I talked to him today and I'm like, dude, you spent a lot of money helping a lot of people. At least let's get the word out. And he is the owner of Bellini Capital. He's investment. You hear me like shit all the time on private equity and investment fund people. He's one of the very rare, very few good ones. His number one goal is to try to help people secure their environments. And he wants to try to get it to the point where he can help as many people get into computer security with the skills that they need. And this is his way of saying thank you to the community because he's done very well and he wants to give back to the community. But the fact that he is absolutely supporting this, if you can go on to LinkedIn and you could just say thank you, just message him and saying thank you for what he does. There are very few people in the universe that put their money where their mouth is, and Arnie is one of those people. So let's go ahead and say thanks. Some people were asking, how do we actually start the instances running as administrator? You just simply right-click on it, right-click on Windows Terminal like so, right-click and go run as administrator, and that'll open up your terminal in the cloud as administrator. And you go, no, it's running as administrator right there. It'll work. Now, the other thing you can do, if you look at the instructions for a number of the things, what you do is the option is this. You can click on the start button and go Ubuntu like that. And then you can right click and run that as administrator if you want as well. So there's more than one way to get to that. You don't have to use the terminal. You can start PowerShell that way. You can start the command prompt that way, all of those different things. You can make it work. And ultimately, our goal is not to get you fighting the VM. Once again, Arnie and the people at Bellini Capital have made the cloud instance available for the students. So don't fight it. I mean, you want to get it to work. Virtualization is something you've got to be able to do. But seriously, don't fight it for too long. We got people that can get you set up in the environment where we can get you the cloud VM so that you can go through the things in this class, because that's our primary goal and objective. So once again, don't forget to say thanks to Arnie for everything that he does. He's been sitting in the shadows. He wanted no credit for it for a long time, and finally I convinced him that he deserves some credit for that because he's put a lot of money forward. All right, so with that, folks, let's get rolling. We're going to take this lab. It's going to take us up to and through the break. How about we give it 20 minutes? We get a 10-minute break and then a 10-minute lab, and then we'll resume in 20 minutes, and then we'll keep going. All right, so let's get to it, everybody. I am going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And we're going to resume at 20 after. All right, everybody, let's get rolling. All right. Hey, everybody. So quick note, if you're running into any issues, please do me a favor and screenshot your problem. Don't just say it's not working because we don't know what that means. Like it could mean it's completely blown up and it's all our fault. It could mean that you mistyped something. It could mean there's a typo in the instruction. It could mean a number of different things. So pretty please take a screenshot and share that in the tech support channel. And then we can get to the root of issues much faster than like, it's not working. Why is it not working? I'm not telling. Did this fix it? No. Did this fix it? No. Nah. Let's make sure that we give screenshots. Thank you. Hey, wanted to do a quick check. Do we want to give an extra 10 minutes for this lab? If you can let me know on Discord, or do you just want to keep going? All right, we're all set. Let's do it. Got a lot of people saying, let's go. All right, so let's go ahead and let's do it. So we're going to run as administrator terminal. And once again, if your terminal is not working right, you can just simply type, like click down here and type Ubuntu, and it'll get you the same thing. It'll hook you up the exact same way, just fine. All right, so it shows you the location where it's installed, and it's in the opt spider trap directory. So I'm going to CD into that directory first. That is not what I wanted. Let's not run this against Arnie's.
John, can you share your screen?
Oh,
you lost it.
Do it. Here we go. We should come back. How did it come back now?
Yep, bringing it up. Hold on.
Waiting on.
Doesn't it want to do it? That's still showing black for me.
All right, let me do share. Let's do a whole new share. There we go. There we are.
I think fixed it. Bringing it up.
Okay. You know what's amazing is turning it off and on again fixed the problem. It's amazing. All right. So we're CDing into opt spider trap like so. And now we're in that directory. And now we're going to just do some basic spider trap type things, right? So I'm going to get my IP address here, ifconfig. Paste that in. And my IP address is 172.27.3.161. Your IP address is going to be different. Just because it randomizes the IP addresses all the way through. And now we're going to start just a straight up, sort of spider trap with no special things whatsoever. And it's going to start up listening on port 8000. And when somebody surfs to that IP address, the 172.27.3.161, whenever somebody surfs to this IP address on port 8000, something weird is going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Let's put in my Linux system's IP address. There we go. And I'm going to put in :8000, and we're going to connect into Spider Trap. There we go. And you'll notice that whenever it connects into Spider Trap, the first thing it does is it just gives you these randomized links. And this is what I saw whenever we were doing this test at, when I was doing this test in Arizona. If you select any of the links, it just brings up more links out there as well. Yes, please. Screenshots are awesome. It's quick and easy to troubleshoot problems if we have screenshots. Did get a questions, lesson learned about this lab. Oh, got that. Do you suggest running Spider Trap on company prod servers or just as a decoy? We can talk about both. All right. We talk about how we can actually do that in both situations. So this in and of itself, not all that cool. And the reason why it's not all that cool is because there's a lot of different tools that can detect randomized URLs, and then they will just stop crawling. However, another way that we can run Spider Trap is like this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kill my current edition of Spider Trap. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually feed it in a directory list. Now, this directory list is from Dirbuster. It's one of those directory lists that's used by a large number of web application scanning tools out there today. They basically run with the very similar directory list, and this is a directory listing of known directories for a variety of different web servers that are present on the internet, right? And the reason why this directory list type technique works so well is the web application crawlers are going to be asking for very specific directories, and Spider Trap will respond back with those specific directories and a randomized list of said directories. So now if I refresh this page, instead of it being randomized, it looks like this. We have Keep Away, we have Glenn Miller, we have Configuring Zabbix. If I click on Configuring Zabbix, it brings up Revital, Sponsorship Quotes, Helpcat, Big Smiley, LTR 3G, WebTree. What do we have? Not voice over IP, Pezzy plotter, whatever it is. We have all of these things. Yeah, we some Rick Astley would be amazing on this list. And never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. That would be awesome, right? But it just keeps going. But all of this running as it runs is kind of interesting, but I want to show you what it looks like from the attacker's perspective, okay? From the attacker's perspective. So the vast majority of penetration testers that do web application security assessments, the vast majority of them out there to this day, they kind of do web application security assessments in a very, very similar sort of way. And what they do is they usually kick off their automated crawler and they let it crawl right before they go to bed. Because crawling a website takes a really, really, really long time. And I want to show you what the impact of that would be on the pen tester's system if they're doing that, right? So let's go ahead and let's run it. And here it goes. The automated crawler is just going to run, just going to do its thing. There it goes. Look at it go. Go, crawler, go. And with this, the pen tester goes to sleep. While that pen tester is sleeping, the little automated crawler elf continues to crawl the cyber deception webpage, which continues to give them more and more random URLs, random directories, and it never ends. What is the impact that this has on the hacker's computer system? Well, one of two things are going to happen. Three things. One of the first things that's going to happen is the attacker's automated crawler is going to completely fill up the entire hard drive of the entire system. The reason why is whenever the attacker is crawling the web page, when you crawl a web page, many times they make a local copy of the directories and the website infrastructure on the attacker's computer system. So if I go into that directory, these are all of the subdirectories and all the files that it's created on that over and over and over again. Oh, thank you, Kokusen. Just keeps adding it. The other way that a lot of the web application crawlers work is they will load this data up onto memory on the attacker's computer system as well. All right. So the question was, hack it now, impact on targets availability, not much on the production server. The reason why is it's a request from the attacker's computer system. This doesn't DOS the web server. The web server just gets tons of requests for these little itty bitty directories, and it just keeps giving them to the attacker's computer system. Turkish delight. I think I used this analogy the other day, right? If you go back to Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? Turkish delight. The kid just sits there and keeps eating it. The White Queen just keeps giving him Turkish delight, right? Just keep eating it. It just keeps going, right? So could you use this in production? Yes. So what you would want to do is that you would want to put this in a robots.txt file that would say no index, no follow, don't go to these directories. And then you would have Spidertrap residing on that directory. The reason why is a lot of the attacker tools will look for what's in that directory and automatically crawl and attack the things in that directory. And that's not something your standard user would actually go to. The other thing you could do is you could just have honeypot web servers just sitting around and they can be running this because the goal is just to catch the attacker's crawler, the automated tools, to completely mess up what the automated tools would actually see as well. So good questions on that as well. It's kind of like your poor web app is doing a lolly scramble for the attacker, a never-ending pool of candy that doesn't impact your network. And that's it exactly. It's not going to DOS your system, but it sure as hell going to DOS the attacker's computer system eventually as well. Where does it store it? Hack it now. It's literally like saving it on files on the hard drive. So if you look in this particular system, it's literally storing all of those copies of that files right here in this as well. Reach you, if you go to technical support and start giving them screenshots, they can get you set up with VMware or they can get you set up with a cloud VM as well. I got to pause my share here for a second. I want to check something with the users. All right. I don't know who's setting people up, if it's HK or if it's, oh, never mind. It looks like it fixed. Never mind. It's fine. I've got nothing of any importance to add. and they're doing a good job. Just HK and Brian, when you're setting people up, make sure to add them to the class group, not to default. Would an attacker be able to work around this just by doing checks to filter out the fake ones, like checking for unspecified link responses or parsing the page? It would add a ton of time, DJ. You're absolutely right. But there's two things that are awesome about this trap. The first thing about this trap that is absolutely killer is many times attackers won't know about the trap until after they've fallen into the trap. It's like saying, I can avoid that trap after I step into it. Then you've stepped into that trap a little late. The other thing that you can do from your comment, and I think that this is a super important point that I really want to get into this class, is it's very common for people to tell me, well, if I was an attacker, I would just go through and manually crawl these links and be very careful about what I'm crawling. Good. Like, that's exactly what we want, right, DJ? Like, we want the attackers to slow down. We want the attackers to have to put in more time and effort into getting their attacks to work. Detection time plus reaction time must be less than it takes to attack. And with this, if the attacker is going to do it manually, if they're going to have to create a script, if they're just going to avoid your website, awesome. All of those things are wins on that as well. All of those things are absolute wins in an environment. Would it be a good idea or a bad idea to bury a reverse shell inside of a reverse C2? It depends. If you have a warrant, it's awesome. If you don't have a warrant, you're going to break the law and possibly go to jail. Could you forward the logs to a SIM? You absolutely could. You absolutely could. You could log it to a file and then use Logstash, and then it would load them into the SIM. So you've got some options there. Right. What other questions do you guys have? I'm going to take a seat now. I don't care how old you are. Remember, I dropped down that low, look like a small child at a dinner table. I just think that's funny. Can you have them download actual whole pages with content and honey files and creds? Yes, you can. You can totally modify the code for Spidertrap to do those types of things. This is just a really quick and dirty concept out there as well. Standing desks are great for sitting, Megan says, and she's right. They are. All right. So there we go. We're done with Spidertrap. Let's keep moving. We already did Spidertrap. And let's move on to annoyance. Or like I like to throw out, this particular section is important because not getting shot is important. We're going to talk about kind of setting up the infrastructure as we're talking about these next few tools and some of the things that we're going to discuss over the next like half an hour and what we're going to do on that. So why do I say not getting shot is important? So let's say that you have a bad guy or a bad person system you want to investigate. Direct connections, big no-no. You don't want to fire up a scanner and start attacking that particular individual's computer system. That's just bad. You wouldn't want to do that because that can get you into a heap of trouble. So we can't do that. And dangerous connections, trying to set that up, we just don't want to get caught as well. You also don't want this to be attributable to your company. Let me give you a couple of stories to kind of like set the mood. The first thing that I want to talk about when we're talking about stories is, okay, nothing important going on there. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far, far away, I was teaching a bunch of law enforcement people how to use these technologies. So Spidertrap is like a honeypot. It's more than a honeypot, Delays made. It's a tool that's like, think of it as like a tar pit. Like a honeypot is just something an attacker will interact with, and then you'll say, oh, wow, they got me. But Spidertrap greatly mucks up and just tars up all of their attack methodology. But you're right. It is in the honeypot universe, but it's kind of like a tar pit. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense, Delays. So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far, far away, I was doing a class for some people in law enforcement. The class went well, they were happy, and I set up a bunch of labs, very similar to what you're doing here as well. And then I just didn't think about it. Like the class ended, we all did the hugs, closing ceremonies of like Saturday Night Live, music playing, and they went off and they lived their lives and I lived mine. A number of months after that, I got a phone call from one of their lead techs, and he said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that the cyber deception and attribution stuff that you shared with us was top notch. We actually used it to acquire this really awful drug dealer, like just an incredibly bad dude, like one of those people that would like, cut off heads and put it in duffel bags, cut off fingers of kids and send it to their family members as proof of life. Just a really, really super horrible human being. And we were able to use these technologies to find that person. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's great. Anything I can do to make the world a better place. And I said, what did you do insofar as like hosting your infrastructure? Did you use DigitalOcean? Did you use Amazon? What did you use? And he got real nervous and he's like, we used the systems that you gave us. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah, those systems in Amazon that you stood up for us, we just used those computers. I was like, those computers were the computer systems that were for the labs. Like, they weren't systems that I was giving to you all to use. Those are under my personal account. And he's like, oh, sorry about that. But he's in prison for like 30 years in Venezuela. So and at some point in my future, that guy's going to be getting out of prison. He's going like, I want to know who was running these IP addresses. But yeah, was literally using my infrastructure for classes to hunt down like really scary drug dealers out there. Somebody just said, oopsies, my bad. Was that bad? Because I think that was bad. And yes, it was bad. All right. So when we're doing an ADHD setup and we want to configure it, consider setting up ADHD in a non-attributable fashion. I'm just throwing this out there as a recommendation from somebody that's done this before. You don't want scary drug dealers who cut off people's heads and put them in duffel bags to know where you are. We call that common sense, right? Do not set this up on your own network. You can set up the components on their network, but whenever they're calling back and they're beaconing, you don't want that server that's receiving those callbacks to necessarily be on your server. You want it to be related, not related. Also, when you're buying services, you really want to configure, set up like burnable non-attrib phones, non-attrib credit cards, non-attrib like infrastructure, so that if somebody's tracing this back, it doesn't come back to you. So really what I'm trying to say is you should think about living like a criminal. Like, think about if you were a criminal and you were going to do illegal shenanigans, how would you do said illegal shenanigans in such a way that you would not get shot? That's what we're shooting for, right? Yeah, local coffee shop is too local. It is, but I'm going to talk about some cool things that you can do a little bit later. It's critical to use third-party anonymizing service to connect back to internet-facing ADHD when it's coming back. Creates yet another layer of protection. It sounds awful. Pretend you're a criminal. Look at using Tor, not necessarily to set up the infrastructure initially, but after you have that, the pain is like, yes, if I was a criminal, yes, excellent. Think about using Tor. Don't ever use Tor to set up an account in a cloud hosting provider or an email provider. Because as soon as you connect initially to those services, like right off the bat, they know that you're coming from Tor and they'll start doing things like, yeah, we're going to need a picture of your passport, your driver's license, and social security number before you can set up this service. So after it's been set up, then I would totally recommend bouncing SSH through Tor or Tails or I2P or whatever it is that you're running from some type of VPN out there as well. And there's tons of VPNs out there. It's like if you listen to your grandpa or your dad's like conservative talk show radios or whoever, they're like selling VPN software constantly. Any of those will work just fine. There's tons of them out there. Avoid using Google and Microsoft. Who knew? Privacy is not really their thing. They're just not really. Proton Mail is all about privacy. There's some disagreements, but I actually, for this type of thing, I think Proton Mail would be just fine because you're not breaking the law. Okay. You're really not. You're trying to protect yourself from criminals out there. Also, when you're going through, all of your other accounts will use this account as the main registration verification point as well. You really want to make that. But yeah, they are compliant with law enforcement. It does happen, right? Also, I recommend using a long, strong passphrase. I've worked like cases where we've hacked into criminal servers, and one of the easiest ways that we've hacked into like criminal servers is stupid passwords. Like whatever password you think is a dumb password, a criminal has probably come up with a dumber password for that system. Like literally committing crimes, 123, maybe not that one, but you get the idea. Like crazy, crazy, stupid passwords. 1234 is one that I have absolutely seen as well. If you have to provide an address, use a famous place that has nothing to do with you or anyone associated with you in any way. This is like the Blues Brother maneuver. If you saw the first Blues Brothers, which was like the best musical movie of all time, top notch. The worst was Blues Brothers 2000, easily the worst musical movie of all time. But in the first one, they had their driver's license. They saw where these two guys were, and they all showed up to Wrigley Field because that was the address that they had out there. Yeah, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, right? So an address that you'll remember. So if like, what was your address? You're like, it was Wrigley Field, and you'll be able to pull up that address and put it in there. Hosting providers, man, I swear this could be a whole class on that as well. In a deeper case, Eric says, we seen password 1234567 on a TA network, made the FBI life just laugh at the simplicity. Yep, they use crappy passwords. So some hosting providers get really out there by verification. Amazon can be really strict. We don't use Amazon. You also may need to be able to upload or convert ADHD or just reinstall the tools. Honestly, I would just recommend just reinstalling the tools. Question was, there can be different network for different services like NAS and servers production. Yes. If you want to set it up on different providers, that's great. We're going to talk about CDNs a little bit later. That'll kind of help you establish that. Also, the provider needs to be able to accept PayPal or prepaid gift cards. If you go to Walmart, you go to Walgreens, you go to any supermarket, 7-Eleven, any of those, many times you can purchase prepaid gift cards that are full-on MasterCards, or they're full-on Visa cards or American Express. These are actual, real, full, like credit cards. And many websites cannot tell the difference between a gift card or a real card. Same thing with PayPal. If you use these credit cards with PayPal, many times you can kind of attach that to your PayPal account with that as well. So it works really, really, really well. In fact, for a long time when I was working with law enforcement and DOD, I would like travel and I would buy like gift cards when I traveled. So I'd like go to San Diego and I'd buy a stack of gift cards, and then I would ship them to people in law enforcement and DOD, and then they would basically write me a check. So they could run ops that were non-attributable. Now, why would we do that? Well, the reason why is if you get really, really, really crazy with your paranoia, if you have a gift card, that number is actually associated with your address. If you're working with a gift card from like Walgreens or Walmart or 7-Eleven, the address of that card, if you actually go to the backend database, is almost always the location where the point of sale happened. And many of those, they actually, the name that it's registered to is the manager of that Walmart, is the manager of that Walgreens. So if all of a sudden you start hearing stories about managers of Walmarts getting offed, then I'm probably like going into the hills and disappearing for a few months to just kind of lay low for a little bit. DigitalOcean is a good option. Once again, no guarantees. Like I don't like Linode. I mean, Linode's fine, but Linode gets really, really tweaky whenever you like start doing things that look like attack, like stuff like that. It's just kind of crazy what you'll see from some of these vendors. Now, you can also use some virtual hosting providers that accept crypto. That's totally within your realm. You can totally do that. I have no problem with that. But the problem is almost all of them seem shady as hell. I just am absolutely convinced they're copying everything off of those servers. It's got to be ran by the Russian mafia. But if you don't care, if you're just setting up a redirector and just kind of running through, then maybe it's going to work for you, right? And it'll work just fine. But for some of them, they're a little bit off. One of the providers, it was kind of funny. I was getting ready to do, what the hell was I doing? It was some op that was trying to hunt down somebody in Europe. I can't remember what it was, but I was setting up a spear phishing site in conjunction with like redirects and things of that nature. And the spearphishing site totally flagged this particular hosting provider, like just completely flipped them out. And they contacted me and they're like, we need driver's license. We need this, we need this, we need this. And I'm like, I can't give you that. It's for an op, but I can give you like a contract that'll say that this is legit work that I'm doing. And they said, no, 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 no. We don't care if it's legit or not. That was their quote. The only thing we're worried about is, can you pay? And I ended up like, well, I could just prepay for like the next 3 months. Can you do that? And they're like, yeah, you can do that instead. So they really didn't care about attribution. They straight up just wanted to make sure I could pay. They didn't care if I was doing crimes. They just wanted to make sure that I could pay. That was it. Burner phones. There are so many different burner phone apps out there as well. I like to use real honest to God phones. Like this is an older burner phone that we have set up. It's all smashed and troubled. But you know, if you're going to set up something through like authentication through Google email, many of the email providers and hosting providers will require a phone number that they can send a text to for two-factor authentication as far as setting it up. So you need to set up that burner phone. Phones can be purchased from just about anywhere, Walmart, Target, gas stations, little to no cost, and you can use apps that do this as well. Now, couple of quick points. Eric said, just like the IRS, we don't care you made the money. We just want to make sure you paid your taxes, right? So here's the deal. When you're doing this, a couple of quick tips. First things first, if you buy a burner phone, okay, let's say I have burner phone A and I have real phone B, okay? Don't ever, under any effing circumstances, go out to the parking lot and set up your burner phone and immediately shut off your regular phone. Okay? Don't ever do that. The reason why is they can trace this burner phone back to the exact time that this phone went off the network, and they can bridge and say, this is the phone this is attached with this burner phone. That's number one. Trust me, it's not that hard to basically say, well, this phone was activated and this phone was shut off at the exact same time. That's number one. Number two, if you get burner phones, don't get a batch of burner phones and just activate all of them at the exact same time at the exact same place, like your house. That'll set off a signal flare at your house. What level adversary are we talking about here? Serious business. You're looking at nation state level attackers, and I would say scary ass like organized crime, Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe, when you're setting up these burner phones. I mean, you're right. Like there's a high level of paranoia, but there's absolutely like, look, there's a strong possibility that some scary ass drug lord in Venezuela is going to be able to find my house. So if they come across a bit more paranoid, that's great. And as an instructor, I would rather teach people to be much more paranoid. And you compare it back to your choosing than somebody going like, well, I wish that John would have told me that I shouldn't activate 23 burner phones in my apartment. And it'll put a target on me as well. So when we're looking at this, that's a couple of things with burner phones. And Megan brought up, don't ever let your kids take the burner phones to school. So I used to have a lot of these burner phones, and my kids, before they had cell phones, they really wanted cell phones. So they would come into my office and they would grab like one of my burner phones that I used in class. And then they would like go to school and they're like, look at me. I've got a cell phone, everybody. I can play Snake on it. And I remember I was at parent teacher conferences, and during parent teacher conferences for my son, the youngest son, who was in like grade school transitioning into middle school, they were like, so your son brought a phone to school, and that was kind of disturbing to the other children. I was like, he brought a phone to school? Yeah, he brought a phone. Like, he doesn't have a phone. He said it was one of your burner phones. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Why do you have burner phones? And I sit there and I'm trying to explain to the school teacher why, yeah, kids are rats. They're like the Labrador retriever of humans, right? Like, right there's the body. Yeah, give me pets. Yay. But yeah, it, like totally ratted me out and was like, yeah, my dad has burner phones. And I spent a good amount of time trying to like explain to this teacher why I had burner phones. And they still don't really, they never really got around to the point where they like trusted me at all. Paying for it all, do not use a personal corporate credit card. This is something that I see happen time and time and time again. It's like, we need a non-attributable credit card. And they're like, okay, yeah. No, we need a non-attributable credit card. Yeah. You can use this one. You can use this credit card. And you're like, great. On the back of this credit card, it literally says the name of the company. Like, yeah, that's our non-attrib card. Like, this doesn't this this is stupid, right? And the Department of Defense and government are some of the worst. They're like, yeah, we got you, and they have credit cards that are totally attributable back to the government. So Walgreens, preferably in another state, Visa, Amex, MasterCard, pay with cash. Most of them will require you to pay with cash, but you want to break that kind of that chain back to you, and the cash works really well. The other thing that's really cool post COVID is it's now socially acceptable to go into these stores wearing a face mask. So it used to be like, you go to Walmart and they'd have these security cameras and they'd be fine, like looking at the geometry of your face. Now you can totally put on a stocking cap, put on a face mask, and cough a couple of times, and no one's going to question it. And people may look at you kind of funny and they'd be like, oh, that's weird. But it's not that out of the realm of normal that it's that crazy. But you can literally wear a face mask, go in, and you can buy your gift cards out there as well. All right, so the setup, as I said, you set up your honeypot things here, like honey badger, canary tokens, honey ports, your honey trap, honey docs, your DMZ. But anytime any of the callbacks happen, it goes back to your hosted honeypot system, right? And we'll talk more about this hosted honeypot system here in just a couple of minutes, but all components should track back to that cloud deployed system as well. Also, I'm going to tell you, don't get attached to it. Only do one op per server. It's like, you shouldn't have a server that just goes forever, just running and running and running for multiple different operations. It should be something that is there for a short period of time, and then you blow it away, and then you just build a new one out there. Gigolo for life. Magnets, how do they work? Right? All right, annoyance, transitioning into honeypots. So what is a honeypot? This is an object that is intended to be interacted with by an attacker, not legitimate users. And it can be anything. It can be a token, a record in a database table. It can be an entire table, a full honeypot system, honeynet, honeycred, honeyport, honeydoc. It just goes on and on and on. It should look like something that is real, but isn't necessarily real. I know that sounds weird. You want it to look like something that an attacker would say, this is valuable to this organization. So we can look at honeypots in a variety of different ways. We can look at them as research honeypots, production honeypots, and we're going to focus on production. Research honeypots tend to be a very, very sort of waste of time. You see university students do this crap all the time. They're like, what we're going to do is we're going to stand up a Windows Server 2003 system and see if it gets hacked, and then we're going to write a paper about it. What does that prove other than a Server 2003 box can get hacked? Like, that just doesn't help anybody at all. So instead, and that's also what we call high interaction honeypots that require a lot of time, effort, love, care, and feeding to allow those honeypots to exist. We want production. We want to popeel it. We want to set it and forget it. We don't want to have to sit there and tweak with the honeypot every single week or every other month or anything like that. We want to set it up, and we want it to go through and run with it as much as we possibly can. So many teams will use honeypots to learn about how attacks work. It can absolutely be a useful learning tool, but it's also a huge time sinker, and often management doesn't see any real value on that as well. But we can use honeypots to learn and identify compromises in real time, right? This is getting into threat intelligence field. Who here is too young for the Ron Popeil joke? I think that quite a few people, Josh, are pretty young. But then we got some people on Discord that are bringing up the Ron Popeil. Just set it and forget it. Yeah. So there we go. All right. So when you're looking at incidents, is your main goal to detect and clear or detect and learn? Honeypots can be very, very, very useful for you to detect and then learn what the attacker is actually after. What are they doing? Are they just dropping cracked software? Are they searching for top secret or credit card numbers? What other systems do they have access to? Honeypots can help us answer these questions in ways that most security technologies cannot. So we're going back to detection time plus reaction time must be less than the amount of time that it takes for the attacker to be successful. This gets into a quote that I'm a little bit at odds with Bruce Schneier. Bruce Schneier is like this really well-known information security guy that's just really, really, really super smart and kind of a godfather to a lot of these things. Actually kind of looks like the OxyClean guy, to be honest. And he has this quote that's called security through obscurity is no security at all. And I think he's wrong. Security through obscurity, when he's talking about his code or like code for crypto, if you're trying to do obscurity for your code and your crypto through obscurity, that's not real good security. The problem is people took that quote and they kind of blossomed it to all of security, which was wrong. Security through obscurity, flipping rocks. It's incredibly effective if you have proper alerting and logging associated with that security through obscurity that's out there. So the apostles asked, will the principles applicable in a corporate environment? If not, what will the best strategy be to deploy? We're going to kind of talk about that for each of these different technologies as we go through them, because it really does fall to each of the different technologies. If you're looking at something like Spider Trap, yeah, just put it in robots.txt and let it do its thing, right? That's simple, effective. And is it going to stop all attackers? No. But is it going to stop the skidiots? Absolutely. That's really effective. That's fundamentally different than something like Honey Badger, where we're going to do full geolocation attribution for somebody that pulls down a Word document. So it is different in that scenario. How do you create traffic to trick the attacker? I'll explain that here in a little bit. Viper nil, nihil. We will be getting to that. But basically it boils down to creating things that are interesting to the attacker, like credit card numbers, social security numbers, things of that nature. And then they will come. Trust me, they have tools that automatically find those things. Like if you want to look at tools like File Finder and Share Finder are two tools that will look for files with specific keywords in them. And we'll basically talk about how we can do that. So they automatically search for keywords, they find these files, then we trap them. So hopefully that helps answer some questions. Honey users, we can create accounts to trap attackers, right? We can create these accounts as fake domain admin accounts, service accounts, and then we generate alerts when somebody activates or tries to access these specific accounts. You can set it up in LinkedIn and Facebook, and then you have rules for your SIM to be able to detect that. And that takes us to our next break and our next lab, which is Honey accounts. So let's go ahead and let's go to the intro lab section. And we are going to be doing a Honey user. Okay. So the goal of this lab in like a short period of time is we want to create a Honey user account named Frank. Okay. Why Frank? Because just Frank. Okay. And then we want to create a rule in the event viewer on a Windows computer system that anytime someone accesses the Frank account, it's going to generate an alert. And this is going to go right back to Viper's question. How do we get people to show up? Well, this is perfect because we don't have to. Because the nature of the tools that the attackers use, they will automatically attempt to authenticate to every single user, and they're going to trip on our Honey account. And I'll walk through and I'll explain that. So we're going to be doing this lab. And in here it says, note, if you're having trouble with Windows Terminal, you can simply start each of the 3 shells we use by starting them directly from the Windows Start button. Simply click the Windows Start button and type PowerShell, Ubuntu, or Command Prompt. For PowerShell and Command Prompt, right-click and run as administrator. So you're going to go in and you're going to generate 200 users. Then we're going to go into Event Viewer and we're going to create a custom rule in Event Viewer for the Frank account in the security event logs. So you're going to create this with this XML. And now anytime anyone accesses the Frank account, it's going to generate an alert. So now we're going to use an attacker tool, Local Password Spray, which is a fork of Domain Password Spray by Bo Bullock. And you're going to try to log into every single one of the 200 accounts. And you're going to see that just simply attempting to authenticate to the Frank account was enough to generate additional logs. So that is the lab. This is the break as well. So we're going to do this and then 20 minutes for the break. So you have a full 30 minutes to do this lab and have a break. We will resume at 30 after, like so. Somebody can reset the timer. There we go. And with that, get rolling. If you need anything, please let us know. If you're having any issues, please go over to the tech support channel, screenshot your problem and send it in. And we have a lot of nerd herders there to help you out.
Ja.
Okay, so let's make sure that everything's working. It looks like my screen share is working just fine. Looks like we're back in business. So now we can go through and set this up. So we have some questions. Let's actually go through some of those questions. The first thing is, how would you actually set this up? If you notice for a lot of the things that are tool based, like if we go back to Spider Trap or any of the tools like Port Spoof, you actually have the full download link where you can get Port Spoof to set that up. So whenever I'm referencing like the ADHD system, you can literally go and download the tool and build your own ADHD system directly. All right. So that's one. Two, ADHD is actually a VM that you can download. You can pull it down. I think it's on the Wild West Hackenfest website, and you can download a full Linux distribution to set it up and get everything working. The Windows system that we're working with is very self-contained, where the tools are already installed, and you can use that for learning purposes. But whenever you start implementing these in production, you really need to set them up in such a way that they are, you take the tools, like let's just use one. Let's go here, take over XKCD, Strand, JS, Intro Labs, and let's go pick a tool. Port Spoof. So if I go to Port Spoof says, here's the website where you can download Port Spoof. Here's the description of Port Spoof, and here's where it's installed. But this gives you the full, this is funny. It looks like Port Spoof no longer exists. So congratulations. The website I have in Port Spoof now sells the desiccated coconut diet, a healthy, flavorful choice. So Port Spoof, lucky for you, is a raw ELF executable. And hold on a second. Hold on. Ben, can I borrow you? All right, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to everyone. Say hi to Ben. Say hi, Ben. Hey, guys. Come on. There you go. So Ben, you're working on a paper for school that is on Port Spoof, right?
I am, yep.
All right. I don't know if you can hear him. Did you notice that the Port Spoof website is now selling coconut diets?
What?
Yeah, if you go to portspoof.org, desiccated coconut diet, a healthy, flavorful choice.
Are you gonna buy some?
I don't know. I don't know if I like coconut that much. So yes, well, that's going in the paper. I mentioned we should fork the Pork Spoof project and probably host it someplace.
I already spun up a folder and we're getting ready to do that. Actually, I like the idea. So
All right, cool. So everyone, a round of applause for Ben, who's going to make this happen. Ben, we found a bug, Ben.
yeah,
So
minor
when,
bug.
when life gives you coconut. Well, thank you, sir. So we will address this. So all of these tools aren't necessarily our tools, but they're going to be our tools here shortly. We'll just take that over. But this is a tool that's written in straight C, and I feel really bad because like the whole point of this is like, well, you just go to the website and download it. But yes, the Port Spoof executable. Hey, are they done with the noisy stuff? Because I just shut that door because of the ratcheting.
You know what? I think they're gonna be.
Yeah, just knock it over and then kill that fan, and I'll get it. All right. But at any rate, most of the tools you have the download links where you can actually pull the coconutty goodness down for those tools. All right, but let's go through this tool. Now, this is not a tool actually at all. This is literally just a technique, right? There's no tool involved. So you wouldn't need ADHD to do this thing because this thing is like literally just something you can do on a Windows environment. So what we're going to do is we are going to open up a command prompt on our system, start up my instance. Come on back, Shane, come back. All right. So we've got that. There we go. We're going to open up a standard command prompt. And then the instructions have us cd into the tools directory. Just going to do some copying and pasting. Some copy and pasting here. There you go. There's no mistakes with copying and pasting, just happy little accidents. All right, there we go. We're going to type in 200 user gen.bat. So this is going to generate out 200 users, roughly 200 users, to emulate what you would see if somebody was doing a password spray in an environment, right? We're going to see what it would look like if somebody was going to do a password spray. However, in this situation, we're not just going to do a standard password spray and set it and forget it. We're actually going to have a honeypot that could detect this password spray. And this gets back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where I'm like, how do you get the attackers to generate the traffic coming in to this environment? All right. How do we get the attacker to go to the Frank account? Turns out you don't have to convince the attacker to go to the Frank account, because the attacker is just going to go to the Frank account automatically, because they're going to hit every single one of those accounts. Somebody said Bob Ross streams on the weekends on Twitch. He's the greatest streamer ever. Even in death, he's dedicated to streaming. That's pretty awesome. There's the sports bar that we go to sometimes in Deadwood. They have sports everywhere, but they have one TV dedicated to the Bob Ross channel. And that's where I sit so I can watch Bob Ross. There's something just intoxicating about the man and his calmness and what he brings on that as well. All right, so here we've got 200 users that we have created, but what we're going to do now is we're actually going to create the rule in the sim, which is just the built-in event viewer on the system, and we're going to detect that password spray that comes up. So here we go. We're going to click start. We're going to run event viewer. There we go. It's going to open up the event viewer. There we go. And then if you go to Windows logs, you have the three main logs are application, security, and system. This also has setup logs and forwarded events, but the big ones are application, security, and system. What we're going to do is we're going to create a custom filter for the security event logs. I'm getting off path, so sorry. We're going to go ahead and we're going to edit the query manually, and we're going to put in new XML for the rule to focus on the Frank account. All right. Here we go. Going to paste that in. So literally what this is doing is it's saying in the security event folder, inside of that security event folder, when the target username equals Frank, it's going to generate that filter for us. So it's only going to pull out all the event IDs that have Frank associated with them. And we're going to click OK. It's going to ask us to name it. We're going to call it Frank, because Frank. There we go. And now we have created a custom view with the Frank account. Now we have, I think, 4 event logs, 1, 2, 3, 4 event logs that are the Frank event logs. All right. And we have those 4 events. All of these are event logs that were created when we created the Frank event log, or sorry, when we created the Frank account. So this filter works not just moving forward, but it also works for the previous event logs in the system. So we don't care about these that much at all. So we're just going to kind of ignore those. Those all happened at 12:35:11 is when those all happened on that as well. Could we create an alert around those user groups as well? Yes, you can create specific rules around user groups as well. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But now we have this Frank account that's been created. We have the kind of honeypot, which is the event logging around the Frank account. How do we get the attacker to go to the Frank account? How would we make that happen? Well, as I said, you don't have to worry about it. And the reason why you don't have to worry about it is the attackers aren't going to choose specific accounts to attack. All right. They do not do that. A lot of people believe whenever it comes to getting an attacker to hit your honeypot, you've got to create the account with like administrator or SCADA admin or PCI admin or root or anything like that. That's not how hackers work. You see, how hackers really work is they will do something called a password spray. and they will attempt to authenticate to every single one of the user accounts in a domain. They will attempt to authenticate to every single one of them with a single password. So it isn't a targeted attack that attackers do. They're using this kind of spray and pray shotgun approach of hitting everything. Delays Made had a question. How did conjure 200 users out of thin air? It's literally just a batch script called 200 user gen that just creates 200 users on the computer system. So it's really super easy to do. All right. So now let's go through and let's run that actual attack. So if I cd into tools, there we go. If I go into intro labs, I'm going to get the command to actually run that. We're going to set the execution policy to unrestricted. I'm already in PowerShell, so that's no big deal. That is not what I wanted. CD into tools. There we go. Set the execution policy to unrestricted means we're just going to make it so any old PowerShell script that we want to run is going to execute. We're going to import the module local password spray. There we go. Now we've got password spray ready to go. Now we're going to run local password spray with the password of winter 2020. There we go. Type that in. So what local password spray is going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to pull down a list of all the users. Well, hit this and I'll show you what it does. So it dumps all the users on the system, running a command very similar to net users, like that. So these are all the users. So it dumps all of the users down to a text file, and then it attempts to log in to each one of those users with a password of winter 2020. Now, in this particular lab, it found and logged in successfully as Christopher, Dennis, Gregory, Jack, Jerry, and Michael. Now, if you look really, really, really closely, it didn't get Frank. Turns out it doesn't matter if it logged in as Frank or not. It absolutely does not matter whatsoever. The only thing that matters is that it attempted to authenticate to Frank. For that honeypot account to work, it does not require someone to log in successfully. It just requires someone to attempt to log in as the Frank account. So now if I go back to Event Viewer and I refresh this, you're going to see that we've added in a handful of additional event logs right here. We've have 2 more. Now I want to kind of tie this into what AC Hunter does, because there is something really cool about this. One of the things it does is it logs that somebody tried to authenticate as Frank, or enumerate the Frank account. That was the first thing they did. And then they attempted to log on to the Frank account, and they attempted to log in from this computer system, right? And you can see this in the details as well. But it attempted to authenticate from this particular computer system. If I go back to AC Hunter and I go back to Cyber Deception, Cyber Deception has the ability to create a honey user token that if somebody tries to log in, then AC Hunter will grab that workstation that triggered the honey account, and it will automatically generate an alert and correlate that back to possible beaconing behavior on that computer system. So hopefully that kind of starts to get you to understand how it is that we can get an attacker to come to our honeypots, to come to our honey nets. We're not actually trying to get them to come to our honey nets per se, but instead what we're doing is we're putting in these honey nets in the locations where attackers are going to go, like a password spray is absolutely able to do that as well. Question, would it make sense to have a username starting with an A to get scanned as early as possible? Doesn't really matter. Most of the password spraying utilities that are out there, it literally will password spray an entire organization in like 5 minutes. So it's really, really, really fast. Now you're right, with your SIM and your SOAR, we just did this in Event Viewer. In Event Viewer, right? Like, it's Event Viewer. It's like the lamest like SIM of all time. And we were able to pull this off in like 20 minutes. Your full SIM, whether you're using Splunk or ArcSight, or if you're using any of these like other tools like Elastic, you can totally do that. Like, you can totally create a rule that says if somebody authenticates to this system, or sorry, to this user account, automatically lock that workstation out from accessing anything in the domain. That's where security orchestration and automation can come into play. It is also where you get into that thing that we talked about yesterday called what is it? Risk-based alerting. This would be one of those very high fidelity alerts that you would set up in your environment. If anyone attempts to authenticate as Frank, it's time to freak out. Other honeypots, Open Canary. We're going to spend a lot of time with Canary, especially tomorrow, because they're awesome. By the way, that reminds me, I've got to let the people at Canary know that we're going to be giving them the BHIS hug of death. We have this thing where we crash websites by DDoSing them, by talking about them in these classes. So they got to up the resources, but they have all kinds of really cool honeypots for a variety of different services like FTP, HTTP, SMB, SSH, you name it, but you can pull all these down. Now, this is literally under the hood what Canary sells, but on the outside, when they sell it, it's got this really great GUI, it's got integrations, it's got alerting, it's got all kinds of wonderful things in there as well. So we're going to talk about deploy deception a little bit later on day 4. Other one, Symmetria was purchased. Maze Runner, they use a variety of decoys to reroute and retrack all of these different. Eric Taylor, what's your website? Honest question. So yeah, put your website in and we'll see if we can all visit Eric's website. Although I'm going to find out it's some kind of horrible website. I don't know which site he's talking about there. Barricade Cyber. Yeah, I don't think we hug of death your site. Thank God that was the site. I was a little bit worried, but yeah, check out Barricade Cyber. Once again, can we give Eric and the team a round of applause because they are sponsors of this pay what you can model that we have here at Anti-Siphon. And we absolutely appreciate everything that you do for helping make this possible. So be sure to check out Barricade and just say thank you because that's huge. All right, next one, honeyports. This is going to take us a good long time. And we had, boy, Eric, they went straight to I love you. I love you. I love lamp. So there you go. Oh my gosh, I got over here in the YouTube. They say, thank you, Eric. You guys are the real MVP. Just for the record, that was somebody saying something nice on YouTube about somebody else. We just broke the internet. So that's fun. If I understand this correctly, this technique is effective in case someone got past your passive security. Yeah, if they got on the inside of your environment, this would allow you to detect that, or an insider as well. So, all right, let's keep going. Honeyports. Let's talk about how we can create a port that if an attacker actually trips on that port, it will generate an alert or possibly establish an entire firewall rule locking that account, or sorry, locking that IP address out completely. By the way, out of curiosity, what would you be worried about a honeyport? Like if we did a honeyport thing and it automatically blacklisted an IP address, what would be your fear about that? Like if I created a port that if you touched it, full connection, lock that IP, what would be your fear about that? Because we're going to address that here in just a couple of seconds. So fail to ban is one of the tools. Yeah, DOS, right? Maybe they could DOS, possibly. That's not how it works. And I'm going to show you how it does work. All right. So fail to ban monitors for authentication failures and var auth log. All right. And once this threshold is reached, it automatically blacklists that or deny lists that IP address. And this tool is so easy to use. It should literally be on every single one of your systems. Like if it has SSH exposed to the internet, you should be running fail to ban. Super easy to do, right? Super, super, super easy to do. Also, Barricade is on the Twitters. So go ahead and if we can get a link on that, follow them. They're at 52 followers. We can do better. Also, their Twitter feed is pretty good. So check it out. It's good. All right. So let's talk about honeyports. So this lab is for 2 sets of people. And there's 2 different ways you can do this lab. One of these labs, you can just copy in the entire script. It's up to you if you want to do that. You can just type in the whole thing. That's awesome. They're more active on LinkedIn because they're sane. Like Twitter is the sanity mutilator. Like I can see why people are just staying away from Twitter. But one of them is just copy the script and get it working. The other one is a challenge to all of you. I challenge you, YouTubers, to like and subscribe. No, that's Davey504. But so with this, I challenge you to actually write your own script. All right. I challenge you all to write your own script. Slap the bass. So we have a couple that you can do. We've got a bunch of different write-ups. This takes a while to actually get through this. So we're going to be, for those of you that want to take the personal super challenge, I'm going to talk to them right now. If you have no idea about the words that are coming out of my mouth, it's fine. I'm just going to be talking to the Linux super guru heads right now. Okay. So if you're not familiar with Linux, just tune out for a couple of seconds. If we could put in some nice GIFs of cats, right? So if you're not super familiar with Linux, I need you to just focus on the kitties. All right. Just a little bit, just a little cat GIFs here and there. This is just for the people that are super into Linux. All right. So if you're super into Linux, I want you to create something that automatically updates IP tables. A simple rule would be like IP tables. We're adding a rule to the input change. The protocol is TCP IP. The source is the IP address. We're going to jump it into drop. You have to figure out a way using, I recommend netcat, to get that IP address as a variable to run inside of this command. All right. How are you going to do that? If you want to clear your IP tables rules, you use -F. If you want to list them, you use -L. I'm doing this from Bash. If you want to do it from Python, fine. But I learned Bash to get started. Keep those kitties coming. We got people freaking out a little bit. It's okay. Don't freak out. If you're not familiar with Linux, just look at the cats. Just look at the kitties. It's all fine. It's good. All right. Back to the Linux people. You're going to be using Bash. I recommend doing a while loop. You can do while squiggly bracket true, close squiggly bracket. You can do while open bracket space 1 space close bracket, do something done. It's up to you. I recommend that you set it up in a loop. You're going to have to create a variable. So I recommend saying foo equals backtick, an entire command that just pulls out the IP address close backtick to automatically assign it to that variable within your while loop, because you want it to loop over more times than one if somebody actually connects to that port. You can use cut, you can use awk. I've done both. I think my example uses awk because I hate myself. All right. It's a thing that I'm dealing with. I'm sure. Keep the kitties coming, folks. If you're freaking out, as soon as I mention awk, go to the kitties. Okay. Go over there to the kitties out there. Just please just focus on the damn cats. All right. Linux people, you're going to be going through all of this. You're going to be using cut. I recommend using netcat. In fact, netcat's the only effing way that you're going to get this to work. You're going to run netcat listening on a port. You're going to use the verbose option, and then you're going to use grep to pull out connection from the IP address. You're going to use cut to just pull the IP address in those backticks to shove that into the variable. Then you're going to use that variable inside of your IP tables. Then your while loop's going to start back over. No, I'm going over this quickly. Look at the cats. The cats, people. Look at the kitties. It's fine. It's okay. All right. Back to the Linux people. This is kind of a thing, right? It's not incredibly difficult, but it ain't super duper easy either. All right. Also, some additional things. Grep is your friend. You know grep. Grep's your friend. You love grep. It's a really cool thing. You're going to be using pipe to pipe the output from one command into another command, going through, setting all of that up. For example, you can cat exe password grep 0, find user ID, root level accounts that are out there. Don't forget your shell redirects either. You have input, output, and error. You're going to want to take that output and you're going to want to dump it into the command. You're also going to want to make sure that if you have duplicated standard output, you're going to want to get that out to dev null. But we'll deal with that here in a couple of minutes. It's a good place to throw things that are out there. Couple of things, you're going to have to chain it all together. Output the command might be assigned to a variable. Look at the kitties if you don't know what I'm talking about. Just cats. Keep them coming. We're slowing down. That's not a cat. That's a goddamn puma. That is not relaxing. You are not helping. All right, back to the kitties. Great. Back to the command line. All right, you're going to need to make sure that you're going to look at standard error. Remember, netcat doesn't put its output for like the connections that are being received into standard output. It puts them into standard error. So you're going to want to capture that standard error, even though it has nothing to do with errors. That's going to be where your connection from IP address variable is going to be, not an output in error. We want to grab that out of standard error. That's what we're going to be grepping on this as well. You can put in any values you want. Also, you guys can all work together and you can do it. All right. We're done with the kitties. Stop with the kitties. Okay. All right, welcome back. Hey, everybody. So happy you guys made it. All right, so to the kitty people, all right, here's the deal. I just got done talking to the Linux people. We had a little bit of real talk, person to person, human to human. And they've got a challenge that they're going to work on. Some of them are going to get through that challenge with just flying colors. They're going to do really, really, really well with that challenge. Some of them will struggle, and that's the point, right? But I can't write a class that's just to the people that are struggling or the people that are just geniuses. We got to hit both sides. So they're struggling right now, right? Out of the 170, 120, out of the 300 people that we have here, probably 4 or 5 of them are going to do that, right? For the rest of you that I spoke words and you kind of focused on the kiddies that are out there about that. For the rest of you, I have this script and I want you to write up this script. All right. You go into your command line, you use VI, right? You're going to start up bin bash, you're going to echo started while one do, and then we have all these commands that are in here. I've kind of explained what's going on to the Linux people. That's fine for them. But I want you to go through and I want you to be able to type this in because here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to walk through what the hell this thing does. All right. And we're going to make sure that everybody understands what it is we did. Okay. Everyone's going to learn how this thing works. In the meantime, there's a really great website called Shell Explainer right here that is, or explain shell, which you can take the different parts of this command. You see that guy over there on Discord? He's talking about Emacs as a saver. Don't trust him. Not cool. Don't party with Emacs people. All right. Adam, not cool. All right. We're not going to get people on, we're not going to get people on Emacs. Not here. So you can use explain shell. Okay. You can use explain shell to take apart the command section by section by section to identify what this thing is doing. And then tomorrow, we're going to give you all a good solid 40 minutes to work on this lab. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to do Ask the Expert. And then tomorrow morning, we're going to start this morning off with me explaining how this thing works. We're going to take it apart. We're going to do it inside out and backwards. Just because you use Vim doesn't mean that you're like some like Adonis male. No, Vim is great. I like Vim, but it doesn't mean you're a better person. All right. All right. So there you go. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right. So with all of that in mind, folks, please, you can copy and paste this entire thing, type it in. You can use explain shell to figure out what's going on. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to explain how this whole thing works and why this nightmare is so effective for tracking attackers. So with that, we've got 40 minutes on the clock. We're going to do this lab. This is a challenge. This is not in, I don't think it is. This is not in the intro labs. I don't think so. Nope, it shouldn't be. This is a challenge that we're going to work through. You can copy and paste it right out of here. I will give you some tips. There are spaces on either side of the ones. They matter. Case matters in this situation. So we're going to go through, we're going to type it out. This is what we call a pedagogical technique. You're going to type it, not knowing what's going on. You're going to use explain shell. And then tomorrow we're going to walk through it together. And you're going to come away with a better enriched understanding of how the bash command line works in bash scripting to create honeyports from raw bash power. So with that, 40 minutes, everybody, 40 minutes, and we will do an Ask Me Anything. Then we're going to close out the day, and then tomorrow morning, we're going to close out this lab. So do this lab. We will resume at 40 after. And so we set the timer for 40 minutes. That would be great. And we will, all the requirements are in the slides. We go back, all of the requirements are in the slides, starting on slide 86, and all the hints go until slide 92. And then the full answer is in slide 92. All right, everybody, let's get rolling. It's kind of a thing. It's kind of a thing, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm going to explain why this is so important tomorrow morning. Nope, it's not. This one's in the slides. This one's in the slides, everybody. All right, get rolling. All right, everybody. Coming back. So somebody had mentioned the lab is somewhat unclear. This is different. Remember, this isn't a lab. I'm going to stop sharing because I shouldn't be sharing anything right now. This isn't a lab. This is a challenge, which is different, right? Sometimes you have labs or just step-by-step walkthroughs. Sometimes you have some things where you got to try to get something to work. And this is one of those things we're going to try to get something to work. So they are a little bit different. This is kind of like a cyber range type challenge, right? Where you have something in the cyber range that you're supposed to do, and there's not a defined way to actually achieve that goal. So I've had people solve this through Python. I've had them solve it through Perl. I've had them solve it through Ruby. Bash, of course, I see that happen all the time. So there's no straight road to actually do this, but it is a lot of fun to work through. And also, I like to have a little bit of these challenges just because it kind of works people in different ways. But now, tomorrow, we're going to go through and we are going to do a full walkthrough of this. We're going to explain why and how it works. So if it's a little bit confusing or you're a little bit behind, or you're like, gosh, this seems strange, or I remember lots and lots of kittens coming down through here, then we really, really need to show up tomorrow to kind of walk through it. Referencing the honey drive. Well, I don't know about the honey drive. That's a different thing. There we go. Out there as a whole. But yeah, some of these things will be different. But tomorrow, whenever we do the walkthrough from a pedagogical perspective, you're gonna have a much better understanding whenever I start explaining it. That's kind of where we're gonna be rolling. But let's get going with the questions, folks. What questions do we have for me? Because we have the last 20 minutes of class are all dedicated to you. Remember, kittens. Probably not worth much, but it's something. Invoke local password spray, the password of winter 2020. Yeah, you wrote the script. Yeah, and that's a good thing to get that set up. I think somebody's copy and paste went to the wrong window. No, that's fine. That's fine. Not a problem at all. I do that all the time. I mean, if you've noticed, I have lots of little mistakes that I make where I type ls in a Windows command prompt or dir in a Linux command prompt. It kind of reflects, we get a bunch of different things. What kind of techniques would you use to find attackers that have established persistence on our network or system? This is an excellent question. So tomorrow we're going to get into some labs. We're going to be dealing with like honey files, and just kind of jump to the chase. We got this website called Canary Tokens. And Canary Tokens allows us to generate a variety of different tokens in a variety of different formats, right? It can create a token as an email address, as a custom executable, as a web bug, log4 shell vulnerability, Windows folder, QR code, cloned websites, Kubernetes config, Excel document, Word document, Entra ID, logon, you name it. They've got a bunch of these things here. And we're going to talk about how we can scatter these things around the environment. And these work really, really well, as I just realized I am not sharing my screen. Let me share my desktop real quick. Now you should be able to see my screen. There we go. So this is Canary Tokens, and it has a variety of different tokens that you can set all over the environment that can make it a lot easier to detect people on your environment. So we'll be talking about that a lot more tomorrow as well. Another question is, any suggestions for those who may have to set all things cyber aside for a time, then getting back to their studies? Variety of reasons, life happens. That absolutely makes sense. So one of the things I always recommend is do those things, but always set some time aside when you come back. It's very, very difficult to say, well, we're just going to stop playing video games and watching Netflix, and we are just going to only dig ourselves into cyber. In fact, that's almost impossible. From a mental perspective, if you're basically telling yourself, this is all I'm going to do for the next 9 months or something like that, you're going to fail. If you can set it up in much smaller, shorter, attainable like stretches, like the next week, I am not going to watch any TV. I'm not going to play any video games. I'm going to focus on working on the labs. That has a defined end. And mentally, you can deal with that a lot easier than saying, I'm dedicating myself to the blade. I'm going to study the blade and all things cyber from here on out. It's just, it doesn't work that way unless you're like in some Quentin Tarantino movie, right? So set yourself up for really small, achievable objectives and then work towards those objectives and then come back. Do you know any sectors that hire cybersecurity roles but don't placate to hiring requirements to contracts? Not really. It depends. Like if you're doing anything federal government, DoD, you're going to be dealing with that. That's just kind of the way the world works. Now, whenever you get into the, let's say, finance world, when you get into the finance world, they tend to care less about those types of requirements. But that is also starting to change. Can you shed some light on this class relevance to application security? How does it apply to application security? In what ways could it benefit in application security? This is a great question because there's a variety of ways that it can apply. The best one is what we did with Spider Trap. And there's other cyber deception tools that you can put inside of your web application. We'll just stick with web applications as an example that can really mess with the attacker. Another thing that you can do, and I don't have a section on this, but you can do it, is you can create something called a gzip bomb. All right. So a gzip bomb is a simple little gzip file that you can load up on your website. And as soon as the attacker pulls down that gzip file and they try to like open that gzip file up, it literally just explodes to like over 4 gigabytes of what's this one? You can make some gzip files that go down to 4.5 petabytes and dynamically just destroy an attacker's computer. That seems fun, right? That seems like a lot of fun. It would really mess with an attacker, but that is one of the things that you can do. So when we're looking at this class, it's a 2-day class that's hitting on applications like Spider Trap. It's hitting on operating system level types of tricks that you can do, network level tricks. We're hitting a really quick survey of a number of different things, but yes, there are even more tricks you can do for applications as well. Any suggestions for adversarial simulation, open source, attack IQ? Okay, so for that one, the 2 main ones that you would use would be Red Canary's tool, Atomic Red Team. Okay, the first one would be Atomic Red Team. Geez, a lot of them are there. So here's Atomic Red Team. And then the other one is Prelude Operator. All right. And this is another purple teaming tool. So here's the link for Atomic Red Team. There we go. And then here is Prelude Operator. Here's the other one I would look at. There you go. So hopefully that helps. What else do we have? Any suggestions on learning how to script a variety of tools and link them together? I'm thinking of having some tools run in the background and save time in learning to pen test. Honestly, the best thing that I've seen for that as far as linking things together is just using AI. Like seriously, a lot of people get really good at like a coding language, like they get good at Python or Ruby, and then they try to do something in another language, and it takes time to learn that, right? But that's really where, like, once you start learning and you learn one coding language really well, it becomes a lot easier to do syntax and deal with troubleshooting. And that's where ChatGPT and OpenAI and all of these different tools just absolutely shines, what I'd recommend. If you're running XDR on client systems, is it necessary to have antivirus? Most of the time, your XDR is your antivirus. It has antivirus baked into it. It's just the entire XDR, like MDR, like community EDR, like didn't like antivirus because it had such a bad name, and justifiably so. So whenever you start having Carbon Black and some of these other tools start coming on the market, really around the time that Cylance took off, they wanted to be called something other than antivirus, even though Cylance and CrowdStrike and all those tools do in fact have full antivirus-like capabilities built into them as well. All right. Any words of wisdom for IT security managers that may be gained from working with them in the past? This kind of gets into a rant that I did yesterday on the news. But whenever you're talking about IT managers, I would recommend looking up any article you can find about awful IT managers and then trying to avoid that trap, number one. Number two, I'm a big fan of stand-ups and people kind of talking about 3 things: plans, progress, and problems. Keep it very, very simple. What are your plans? What are the progress? Like, what is your plans today or this week? What is your progress that you achieved last week? And what problems exist that you require somebody else to step in to assist you with? So if you try to focus on movement of people through plans, progress, and problems, that works, but it's missing something. For most companies that you have a lot of people working on a lot of software, doing a variety of different things, it really becomes incredibly helpful to make sure that you're pulling towards a specific goal and objective. Most of the time when you're working on a security team, it's very easy for people to drop into whatever pet project they're working on. And you need to make sure as a manager that they're working and they're pulling in a common direction, and that you're constantly getting from them plans, progress, and problems. What are their plans? What do they expect to achieve? What did they achieve? And what problems do they need assistance from another group of people? So that's probably my quickest thing dealing with that as well. Have you had an experience where a customer blocked support that disrupted their business? No, we're going to talk about why with port spoof, it doesn't work that way. With port spoof, it doesn't work that way at all. If we could share my screen again, I think my instance is shut down now, which is fine because it times out after like 4 hours. So let me kind of show you why this doesn't work. Let me start this up. This will be a little bit of a preview for tomorrow. Port spoof won't ever trigger. You can't spoof it. And the reason why you can't spoof it is you have to actually spoof an established TCP/IP connection to that port. You can't just send a spoof packet from Google and it's going to block Google. It doesn't work. It only triggers in the event that there's a full established TCP/IP connection to that particular computer system. So you can totally run this all day long and you'll only block people that are making full established connections to that specific port. So like I said, that's just kind of a thing. Do you think attending, and I'm waiting for this and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Here we go. Let me go to running copies and see if my Windows VM is coming back up. While that's loading, let's hit some more questions. Windows is still starting. Do you think that attending studies to reach a bachelor's degree and a master's degree on SAND is a good idea? As long as you aren't paying for it. I would say like SANS is a fantastic idea. It's the most recognized certifications in the industry. I'm very frustrated with their billing model or their pricing model and what they've done, but I still think that they're absolutely amazing instructors. I mean, they're still some of my friends. Even though like 13 SANS instructors are now at Anti-Siphon. So I really believe in the quality of education, and we brought that fire here to Anti-Siphon. That being said, the master's degree is actually pretty good. I mean, you get multiple SANS certifications and a master's degree out of it. That really hits a lot of check boxes. But once again, it's not something that I would ever recommend anybody pay for out of their own pocket. It's just not something you can't afford that, right? I mean, if you're looking at like, I don't know, 7 classes that are required, looking at $70,000 to $100,000 to get the certifications and the master's degree, that's not attainable for most people. It just isn't at all. So, okay, what do we got here? We got the Atomic Red team, shared that out. Thank you for class. You're welcome. When you talked about non-attributing for honeypots, it's way up here. What do we got? When you talked about non-attribution for honeypots, is it more setting up random honeypots in the cloud? No, it's specifically for the callbacks, right? So if you're doing anything that's doing attribution, it specifically relates for the callbacks. If there's anything that you're going to have that's going to make a call back, you're going to want to make sure that that callback comes back to something that's not back at your organization. So that's specifically what we're talking about there and setting that up in the cloud. All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. Can you deploy Rita at scale? We currently have multiple locations all over the country and they're all not on an MPLS. I tried to talk to my manager about Snort and he said we cannot deploy it due to span ports and the fact that we have many locations. He's just telling me this to don't start another project. That's possible. It sounds like he's giving you a wall and making it sound like steps. So that's one of those things. But yeah, Rita can run at scale. So you can set up multiple different sensors that are all feeding into AI Hunter and Rita, and it works just fine. It just sets them up as separate collections. And it should work easy peasy for most environments. And as far as like data speed, as I mentioned, we have a customer that's running at 100 gigabits per second. Now that is a scary, scary system that's doing it, but it totally does that. Now somebody mentioned using your GI Bill. Yep, if you can get it through the United States government through your GI Bill, go for it. Absolutely. All right, so let's get to that question real quick whenever they're talking about, like blocking people through spoofing. of things like that. So let me show you what that looks like. And this is a little bit of a preview for tomorrow, get you guys showing up. But yeah, the point is you can't spoof like a full established connection, and I'll explain why here in just a little bit. Once I get my terminal opening up, maybe I could just go straight to system's just spooling up, so it takes a second. But the thing is, Netcat only records whenever a connection is made, when a full established connection is made. And that means that they completed the TCP/IP three-way handshake. I don't want to say it's completely impossible to spoof the TCP/IP three-way handshake, but it's real hard. It's really, and if it was possible, every single service on the entire internet would go down tomorrow. All right. So I cheated. I already, in the root directory, I have the honeyport script already there. So if you want to, if you want to see what the script looks like, this is what it looks like right here. Not ls, honeyport.sh. So there's the script. I've got it built in. So I guess you guys didn't have to, copy the entire script. Oh, it's weird. There it is. All right. So let's run it. So I'm going to run this script real quick. And tomorrow we're going to do more than just run the script. We're actually going to go through and we're going to show you step by step how you build the script and how you troubleshoot a script like this on your system. So let's go through, and I do need to see that, the cat honeyport script. So the port is 1025. So if I were to run nmap and I was to do a simple SYN scan against myself on that port, let's go ahead and let's give it a port of 1025. Like that. Just a simple little nmap scan, running it against the system. It says that port's open. Notice that it didn't trip. Okay. It didn't trip. I can keep running that all day long. I can just simply rerun this again and again and again and again, and it's going to constantly come back and say that that port is open. That's because it's simply sending a SYN packet to that port. It is not establishing the full TCP/IP three-way handshake to establish that full connection with that port. Okay. Now, to trip that alert, to actually trip it, we have to make a full established connection. That means I send you a SYN packet with a 32-bit initialization sequence request number. The system will respond back with an acknowledgement number that's a randomized 32-bit number. I will respond back with a SYN that's incrementing the ACK number by 1, and then I will send a FIN and close it out. The point is, you can't spoof that. I mean, you can, but you would have to brute force a 32-bit number before somebody can respond. Let's just say incredibly super highly unlikely, right? So to change this around to show you where it actually triggers, we change that SYN from just sending a SYN packet. We change that to a full connect on that port. And now it all changes. You see that? So if you notice, we ran a SYN packet. It was running all the time. As soon as we ran a connect, it came back, said it was open. Then it said it was filtered. And the reason why it says it's filtered, if I put in the -- reason flag, is it comes back and it says it's filtered. And the reason is no response. And the reason why we're not getting a response is there is an IP tables rule that's blocking any and all traffic that's coming from 127.0.0.1. All right. So hopefully that answers the question briefly. Tomorrow, we're going to break it down in a lot more detail. All right. Would it be considered fraud to create a GoFundMe for bagpipers to annoy people and instead use it for certs? Yes, that would be fraud. That would be illegal. You can't do that. All right. This is wire fraud. You cannot do this. So, all right. And then I read this incorrectly. I read that Brian said, I would suggest looking in our YouTube channels. No, Brian, there's nothing in our YouTube channels about bagpipes or fraud. So I read that kind of not what was actually there, but just kind of reading it sequentially. So, all right, everybody. So that's it. Let's go ahead and let's, I don't see any questions. There we go. All right, everybody, with that, let's kill it. And I will see you tomorrow, the same bat time, same bat channel. And we will walk through this lab a lot slower. We're going to take it apart so nobody has to look at kittens anymore. Everyone will understand how the script works. So long, and thanks for all the fish. All right, take care, everybody.